LaCroix and Topo. Let's go.
Sponsor us.
Come on. If I could get a Topo Chico sponsor, I'd be settled. The North Face and Topo, I'd be good.
I would cry. All right. All right, and we're back. All right, so I probably edited in some funny clips about LaCroix before this, but we had some technical difficulties. So welcome to the real episode 2.
That's right.
Uh, um, so we got to redo everything. We had some technical difficulties, so I got to remember what we talked about. I forgot to do this in the last one, but I should do it here before we start. Just want to say like R.I.P. for Riley from Power Trip.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Um, I only met him a few times, mixed them a couple times. A really good friend of mine has been their front of house for like the past couple of years,
Yep.
and I know all those dudes are really hurting right now. And like I can't, I've lost people I've toured with, but no one that was in my immediate camp, so I can't even imagine how much that sucks.
Yeah, I actually I never got to meet or work with Power Trip, but us, all of us Wage War guys are super big fans. I
Mm-hmm.
believe a song or two of them are in our preset playlists, and
Yeah, same.
yeah, I mean they're such a super awesome hardcore band, and
Yeah,
yeah, so rest in peace, Riley.
yeah. Also, shout out Zach Rippey. He mixes them or has been mixing them. Used to mix Gay Creeper. Runs Sound Signal Audio. He's awesome. Um, Hope all those guys are doing well. Also, shout out Telefunken. We're
Oh yeah,
both
that's
using
right.
we're both using our M80s today. Uh, Great company, great mics, all kinds of stuff.
We'll shout out Connor, our boy Connor from
Yeah, our boy Connor.
Telefunken.
Make
Always
sure,
comes in clutch when we need him on tour for sure.
yeah, always make sure we're good to go. Um, so we already, like I said, we already filmed some of this, but we're just going to redo it.
Yeah,
Um,
we had some internet problems, and yeah, so we'll just kind of we're going through microphones today. Let's just talk about what's in our mic package and what kind of we like or don't like or why we like a certain, you know. Let's go. Go ahead.
yeah,
We'll start with
let's.
yours.
All right. So, okay. So, like I was saying in the other thing, I don't carry as many mics as I used to because I don't have to. Mostly just vocals and drums. Just because our guitars are all DI'd, just straight to
Right.
the PA, Kemper. Um, well, we have one real guitar. One guitar is a reamp because we only have one guitarist on stage, and then bass is also a Kemper. So
Right.
with that out of the way, there's that. Okay, I have some stuff. My kit is out right now. All right, so we'll start on kick for me. My usual go-tos for kick for pretty much every band is always the 91.
Gotta have it. Gotta have it. Everybody.
Gets that smack, gets that thing.
If you're ever gonna buy a microphone, that's the one.
Yeah, for any drummer, get this in a Kelly shoe and you never need anything again.
That's it. You
Um,
said it.
and then usually on my out for especially for metal, hard rock, D6. Again, I feel like it's like almost the only way to go. The Telefunken M82 is really cool. I don't own one though.
Yeah,
Um,
I've gotten the chance to mix on them a couple times. Would love to add one. One day.
yeah, I
I've
I
got
don't.
like several kick out mics that I'm just like, I don't need another one. But.
Yeah, same. Same. There's a bunch of the Telefunken stuff I want to buy just to have and for
Right,
studio
yeah.
stuff and to play around with fit. We'll get there one day. I know we were gonna probably buy some more drum mics. We were talking about it this year, but then in the last episode we were talking about how the world ended, so
Right.
so no one has any money. Um, so that was kick for me. That's my pretty basic setup. Snare. I'm usually using this guy actually right here. Uh,
Bingo.
Telefunken M80. Um, Super sick on snare top, sick on guitars. Uh, this is also for Fit for a King. This is every vocal mic on stage is one of these. Um, we have this one. We have a custom turquoise one for Tuck, and then Kirby uses a Shure wireless with an M80 capsule. That's I think it was white. I can't remember off the top of my head. We only got to use it for 5 shows. But snare top, this is sick. I also got this out because my old go-to, which I mean I'll still go to if I'm like at home and I don't feel like busting out the expensive stuff. Um, Beta 57A on top,
Yeah. Love it.
unstoppable, metal, sick, also cool on bottom, also cool on guitars, also cool on vocals.
It's a great
Um,
all-around mic too. Just it's in everything.
that was Old Faithful, and then on bottom I've got my recently acquired M81, which is
The
the
short
M80.
barrel one too. That's
Yeah,
nice.
little short guy. It's the same, basically the same mic as here, but it's got a slightly different EQ. It's a little flatter,
Yeah.
so which is cool because I've only gotten to use it once so far, but I was using this guy before, which is my go-to tom
Yep.
right now. Um, Sennheiser 604. It's real worn, but I was using this, and this really accentuated like kind of where like the snares live and are get kind of gross in like the upper mids, which was always kind of my battle with it. Like it sounds really good, but it was always my battle. And then when I switched to this guy recently, since it's just flatter, I found that I didn't have to cut as much of
As
that
much,
out,
right?
which was like really sick. It meshes really well with this guy because obviously it's made to.
Right.
Um,
They do complement each other.
yeah, it's sick. And like there's something about the Telefunken stuff that has like some kind of it,
Fullness. It just
yeah,
is
it's
a nice
it's like a
round.
it's like a saturation almost when it gets on something that's real loud,
Yeah.
like a high SPL. It almost gets
hmm
like saturated, like a little like it sounds kind of like I don't know, just full and warm.
Right. Super full, super round. And yeah, it's funny because I've been through a ton of microphones, and where I'll never forget when we got the few M80s and M81s and put them on the stage. As soon as I came off stage, and I was still wrapping cable up, sweating off the last song, and Cody was like, "That's the mic I want on my stand every night from now on." And I was like, "Okay, yes sir." Like
Yeah.
I liked it too, but it was a turning point, even just for our performers. Just wow, this is what we like.
Well, it's cool because I mean you can. I mean I know Zoom. We use Zoom for this, and it's not the greatest audio quality, but like the EQ, it's a dynamic mic, which for anyone who doesn't know means it doesn't basically have a preamp on the inside. Um, which those are usually I feel like they're not as bright as like a condenser, which is a mic more or less with like a preamp in it.
Right.
Um, but
48 volts.
yeah, exactly. The uh, the EQ that's on this mic though, that's built into the capsule, is just makes it kind of sound a little snappier, a little closer to like a condenser, which
Right.
for vocalists they love that because like the same thing with my guys. The first night, um, when we met our rep Connor, I forgot. I met him before the Fit Guys did because another good friend who will be on here one day, Travis Wade, mixes Dance Gavin.
A boy.
He was really good friends with Connor, and because Dance Gavin was all Telefunken already. Somehow he met Tuck, our bassist, and because they live in the same area,
Right.
and basically was like, hey, if you want to try these, give them a shot. And Tuck texted me, was like, should we try these? Like, do you think I'll like them? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it was like the same thing. First show, everyone got off stage, and he was just like, this is it. This is perfect.
Yeah.
Like, um, it's a huge game changer. Yeah, they're sick. They're really cool. For the average musician, some might be a little pricey,
Right.
but it's worth it.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I have in my kit, besides 100 LP claws, is five, I think, of these guys.
Okay.
Audix,
Yeah. The Audix. Yeah.
yeah, Audix ADX 51s.
hmm
Um, these are the first condensers I ever bought. I use them. I use all of these on cymbals, so overheads, hi hat, ride. Um, first ones I ever bought because they were really cheap, and I heard that they were really good. Or like for the price, they were really good. And I've actually still blown away that it's probably been like 5 years, and I'll buy a replacement if they die because it's like $125 ish.
Right.
Super good build quality. They sound really cool. Um, yeah, I can't say enough about them. I've used them to record acoustic guitar and stuff too, and they're really good. But for drums, these are a really great bang for your
Mm.
buck.
They're built like tanks, you literally you just
Yeah,
throw
like
them in the case and go.
I don't know if you could hear it.
Yeah. Oh
It's
yeah.
it's solid. It's a solid boy. Um, yeah, and then I got 100,000 of these, in case anyone doesn't
Gotta
know.
have them. Yeah, I'm always on Reverb and Craigslist looking for them, and you get lucky. You'll find two, three out of a time, and it ends up being kind of like get them for like buy one get one kind of a thing, which is nice because they're kind of
They
for
can
what
be
they are.
pricey.
They're expensive. They're
They can,
40, 45 bucks or so, and it's like that last thing. Like when you need six of them, it's like I don't want to spend $300 on freaking mic clamps right now, but they're so necessary. I mean, I have a ton of them. I use them for everything myself.
if anyone's watching this, because I know there's some people that were commenting on the last one and stuff that are a lot newer to audio stuff and whatever, or just guys in bands that are buying stuff for themselves. Uh, this is like the best investment for drums ever.
Really is.
Like
Hmm. And they're universal.
me and you have talked about it before. I hate when, especially when I'm on tour or even at home. As much as I love using stands, it's so not practical. And like
Right,
the
especially with changeovers and
yeah, the way a modern show runs, it's like
mhm.
not
It's
practical.
not, and it doesn't look right. It's one thing if you have if it's like I work in a theater where it's one band and that's
Yeah,
it. We're not doing changeovers, so yeah, we'll put a snare stand up and a couple overheads because I don't gotta switch three drum sets out, which is
yeah,
great. I mean, I love it. It's one I can actually mix, and feel good about it. But
it feels a little more proper.
yeah, but it, in my opinion, looks ugly.
Yeah,
But
no,
it's just my opinion.
it can look cool. But yeah, my I think everyone's biggest qualm with it is just how long it takes. Like if you know,
Of course.
like I think I said this in the first version, but it was like if I was touring with a band that was always the headliner, like we set up our drum kit, giant stages, never moved them. I would love to just use overhead, like some big, large diaphragms on some
Yeah.
stands, but I'm not.
You're a one man crew, man. It's not like you got drum techs and guitar techs that can kind of back you up where, they set up the drums, get your overheads in place because that's kind
yeah,
of, I shouldn't say their job because, yeah, we should mic up everything. But,
yeah.
when it comes when it just is part of it. And yeah, so,
Well, to be fair, we do have a guitar tech, Bryce from Phineas. He's usually
oh,
with
okay,
us,
you guys do.
um, but I'm not trusting him with my overhead placements.
Yeah,
He's
that's,
I I was gonna say no diss, but yeah, real diss. I mean, he's not. He's never gonna watch this, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, like if I could just leave my kit, that'd be cool. But I think we've done two tours where the majority of it we got to stay backline, like
yeah.
drums and everything.
And even then, there's so much shit going on and in the way where even just it
Yeah,
still makes sense to myself. I still go under with the LP clause for the sake of convenience, and it's just what I've been doing for the last couple years. So I'm
same.
like, it ain't broke, so don't fix it, And we'll get to that level, fingers crossed, when all this kind of changes that were, once we're kind of normally on a rise or at least a rolling rise or where you can leave up some overheads, even my pencils on over on stands would be, in my opinion, a lot better. But
Oh yeah, totally. Because you get the whole sound of the kit opposed to just really the cymbals. But
right, or that particular, symbol with some bleed
yeah,
around
and
it.
like we've talked about it before on here. I think on the last one a little bit, where like a lot of times, even when until you're in really big venues, half the time my overheads are for their in ears, and I don't even want to have it on.
Right, yeah, yeah, I
Doesn't
forgot to even get to that point where
yeah,
typically if the room is 1500 or in down or so, or even a little bigger than that, sometimes it just kind of depends on, if it's a high ceiling or really narrow or whatever, or just whatever anomaly in the room that is that day, I end up 9 times out of 10 muting them and honestly relying on the bleed of the vocal mics for cymbals just because it's unavoidable, honestly. And
oh
it is
totally,
what it is. And also, Steven's just a crazy hard hitter. I mean,
yeah,
some nights it's like in a small room in like a small 300 cap, 200 cap club, I'll even cut the snare mics out just because I'm just beating up the PA at that point. It's literally
Yeah.
there's almost maybe for some snare bombs, but it's like especially in overseas when you got a limit of like 100. And well, how are you going
When,
to get some snare into that PA with
yeah,
150 people? And
when you're in Switzerland and the dB limit is quieter than the crowd singing.
right, or just the crowd talking, when
Yeah.
it's 95, 97, and just allow a room full of people drinking, having fun, talking over each other is loud.
Yeah.
And it's challenging.
Yeah, it's fun. I used to really hate, on different topic than Mike's. I used to really hate when I would go to Europe and end up with like dB limits, and sometimes it still is pretty crazy.
Mhm.
Um, but last time we were over there, every night was huge. It was with As I Dying, so we were playing these crazy venues. So it was fun to finally have like
The
that.
headroom and
Yeah.
not be choked by anomalies. Just I'll say it, bullshit.
Well, it was just like, since we had all the firepower and all of giant PAs and giant venues and stuff.
It allows you to really mix properly
Oh yeah,
versus
like
just driving, like a bat out of hell.
yeah, between me, Tyler, who mixes Chelsea Grin, and Brian, who mixes As I Dying, like
Hmm.
I feel like we are almost having a battle of like who could get quieter and like
The
clearer.
longest, yeah.
Yeah,
Watch the average and be like, "Boy, dude, I stayed at 101 for 15 minutes straight, brother."
yeah, and it wasn't like a thing that like anyone could notice, but it was just funny because I know like me and Tyler would be like at the end of the night I'd be like, "Yo, I stayed at 96 the whole time," and he'd be like,
No
"Yeah,
way.
he'd be like, yeah, I peaked at 95. It's whatever," and like it didn't matter because it sounded great, and
Right,
it was just fun to have that much control. All right, that is.
mic package.
Oh, and then I always have one of these guys with me. I don't really use it for anything, but it's come in handy more times than not. Just a
Oh
radio.
yeah, I've got them in my box too. I've
Oh,
actually now, since you pulled that out, um, just in Australia, we recently started putting the DI out of the whatchamacallit dark glass pedal for the bass instead of going out of the XLR jack.
yeah,
And it's been nicer because we also put the NS2 noise suppressor in the loop.
in between.
I
Yeah.
put yeah we put it in the loop instead. Um, and it's really kind of helped him clamp down and keep some tones,
Well, I
a lot
used.
more sturdy. And
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, we used to do that before Tuck moved to the Kemper, which is like a super recent thing. We were using
how do
the.
you like that on bass? Like, is it really that much better than a couple dark glass pedals in a compressor, or is it like
So for me, it is just so Fit plays in. I don't know how low of a tuning Wage War is in, but Fit is in. A lot of their songs are in like stupid low tunings.
yeah, like
Um,
A and
no,
A
like
flat,
like
yeah, and even dropped from there. They
like
had like
E, like
yeah,
it's like they have like their standard song. I want to say is in like, oh dude, I don't even know, but like
down there
yeah, like
somewhere.
yeah, like a lot of their
It might.
stuff's in like F and G, and it's
Mhm.
like with guitars, it's not as hard because to get
Their
clarity.
range is up there.
Yeah,
They're in that high mids.
but with like the way up until really recently, Tuck was playing on Ernie Ball, and the way he liked to set up. I like those basses. I just want to preface it with that. But the way he liked having his guitars set up definitely left me with like a lot of like me and him would constantly be talking about like, yeah, can we make it tighter somehow? Is there something like that? There was a lot of like low mid and a lot of flub, and like
Right. Yeah. I feel like I've been struggling with that too in the last like, couple years. But
the Kemper was the switch to the Kemper was pretty game changing just because like before I had to jump through a lot of hoops. Like we would use I think we used the Dark Glass AX7. That's the one with the clean parallel where you can like stop the distortion at a certain frequency or whatever.
okay.
Um, so because essentially it was kind of funny. So we got that pedal after having a different. He had the Dark Glass head, and then he moved to that pedal because I was like, "Yo,
It's you might as well. Right.
yeah." Well, it was. I was already splitting him, so for me, I would get a clean DI for my low end, and then all of the,
Right.
the
So you do
head.
two bass signals still,
I did.
or did?
I don't anymore.
Don't do it
So
now.
even when we split to the AX7, where it does that for you in the pedal, where it's like you can select the spot where the low end is clean and not
Hmm.
distorted, which for any bassist listening out there is what you should do, because distorted low end is
Low end
stupid.
is just, ugh.
Yeah, yeah, you want that clean so it really hits. But like even with that, it was just something with the way he had his guitars set up and just the general nature of the low tuning and that guitar that the guitars he was using. Um, I would still have to split him. So even though it was already sending me a clean signal, I would have to double it in the
In the
console or
console,
whatever, and so it
right,
just so I could make a
and
crossover,
filter it out, right,
yeah, and have like a low channel and
in a
a
high
high
pass,
channel,
right. Hmm.
just because like it was the only way to get that control. Since we've switched to the
Hmm.
Kemper, um, we got lucky and we got a lot of profiles from their friends in like really awesome bands. So we have like the craziest library.
That's like
Um,
the best about being in the touring bands with the Kempers. Everybody just trades profiles. Like, what are you using? What are you using?
yeah,
So, which has been nice.
I think the one that we're using is one that we got from. I think the one we settled on is I want to say it's one we got from like August Burns Red or something.
Yeah, love those guys.
Yeah,
Best
it's
dudes ever.
oh yeah, and Dustin has
Shout
like
out
the
Chris.
yeah Chris is the too good and like
Too
Dust
good.
Dustin's bass tone is one of the best like metal bass tones that I've heard live.
Super crystal clear.
Dude, it's
Like the
perfect.
projection is there. It comes at you like this way, not like it doesn't
It's
have
not
that weird spatial
yeah,
flubbery shit. It just is like gunk gunk gunk
it's
gunk.
centered and it's just perfect. And
Yeah.
like uh um so we're using I think some profile I want to say we got from him. I could be wrong. I don't remember. I don't really look at the Kempers one. I'm out front
Right.
and
You
going.
hear about them. You hear like your friends talking about it. Like, oh, cool. We got that kid's profile. Like, great.
Yeah, I'm just we spent a day before the last tour sitting with me out front in a
Hmm.
venue.
And
With
going back and forth
yeah,
between tones.
Dan cycling tones. So it was cool because not only did we get a better tone from that, but it's also just got so much more potential of an EQ without having to like add something else to your chain, like
Right.
having to buy like an EQ pedal or something.
Right. Yeah.
And
Or a
the
compressor to squish it down to try and
yeah,
yeah.
and for me the best part of it all is that you can save it and never
Right.
touch it.
And don't have to touch it. Yeah. And that's a thing. That was a game changer when so we have Kempers for guitars, but
Hmm.
Chris is still on the
The
Dark
pedal,
Glass,
the
the
pedal.
pedal. I forget now off the top of my head because there's so many models of everything, and I've been part time helping out at a guitar shop, so now I'm like, what model number is that thing again? Anyways, um,
It's probably got the B7K or something.
the one with the faders on it, the little slide that you
That
know what I
might be
mean?
that. I think that
I think.
I think a couple of them have it, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Doesn't matter.
Anyways, I'd have to go play on their website to actually remember all their pedals.
It doesn't
Now I'm
matter.
rambling. Anyways, doesn't matter. To make a long story short, I've been really wanting him to get a Kemper for the consistency because it really helped out in the guitars from when we switched from the 5150s. And I know we used a 5150 tone that they had tracked in the studio on their Kempers, like their studio tone in the Kempers from the last record
Yeah,
up until the last tour. And then Cody, again, now I just can't remember off the top of my head whose tone we got, but he got a couple different profiles from some friends. And we've been trying to really dive in and tinker with the inner workings of the Kemper now that we've had them for like a solid year and know that like how consistent and solid they really have been for us. And it's great.
yeah. Long story short, being able to have all that stuff in for my bass and like not ever have to think about it because like we had a lot of times where when we were on the pedal, um, because Tuck would still keep it on a pedal board where it would go in the trailer or something, and then like when we'd pull it
And it
out,
get moved around, knobs get moved around and mushed around. A cable gets same. I had that same exact problem, and we have a soft case for our.
oh,
Uh,
us too.
yeah, so now I might be saying too much here, and I might be really unraveling the truth here. But our pedal board is still in a soft case all over the world, and so it gets banged around on the overhead of a flight or in
Yeah,
the trailer on
something.
top of the cabs. It get tumbles off half the time. And
Yeah,
sorry, Chris.
and it's just no. I mean, we did the same thing up until recently, and it's like, I would mark his knobs, and if it was one of those things where if one of us just didn't think about it and we didn't look at it, or like if Bryce didn't think about it and look at it, because we all have so much going on that, like,
Right, it's
you
like
know
I don't have time to go and check your pedal board settings every single day on top of then the 100 things I got to plug in. So
we would go to like go on stage like when we're support and don't get the sound check or something, and then like
mhm.
after the set, Tuck would be like, "Was one of my
you know
knobs different?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, probably."
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and even if you like gaff them down or e-tape them down, like some people do, it might
It'll
work, for some degree. But
it still moves.
yeah, dude, it's great for recording, and that's not knocking on Dark Glass. We shouldn't be.
No, I think
It's
I
because
think
they sound phenomenal. They
I
really
think
do.
I think our Kemper patch literally has a dark glass in it, or it's
Right,
a
yeah, and I
or
think a lot of
like
the bass
yeah,
players are using dark glass profiles in the
yeah,
Kempers and whatnot.
like I love the tone. Like I'm 100% confident that we are still using one in the Kemper, but it
That
just
yeah,
the knobs can't
and
move, so I love
honestly,
it.
that's what I would prefer. Like it's not that I don't want the dark glass. I love the way it does. I do like the way they sound. It just the consistency of turn it on and scan your wireless and let's rip, boys. Like don't
Yeah.
have to like, oh, let's try and wiggle this patch cable because it's sounding funky today. you
Oh
know
yeah, I don't
and
miss
it just
those.
happens. It's part of the
Yeah,
game, man.
I don't miss
It
those
really
days.
is. Yeah, it does. For every 30 shows, there's 3 or 4 of those days where you're like, okay, let's go through the pedal board real quick,
All right,
and it just is what it is.
what do you have in your pack? Because I've
My
got that
pack
that
is right here. I got it all, most of it all out here. I'll
that's
just start with kick, and we'll go down the line here.
yeah, because that was all of my stuff that I tour with regularly. I have more mics than that, but I don't use them
The
regularly
right,
anymore.
those
So
are. This is the stuff that lives in my Pelican that I take all over the globe that I just can't live without, at least for Wage War and the other few like real friends of bands that I've,
yeah,
put my heart and soul into mixing. If it's a theater, I'll kind of use whatever,
same.
depends on the day. But anyways, I'll start off with kick. Of course, like you said, gotta have the 91. It's the bad boy. It sits in perfectly. And the cool thing is I use this on so much more than kick, even at home in the theater. I've put them like under timpanis or under whatchamacallit, like bell sets and
Hmm.
marimbas and stuff on the floor on top of some foam just to capture, or even tap dance shows. I put a few of them across the floor.
Yes.
Crazy thing. I've used these for so wild things I would have never even thought of.
Have you ever used one inside a lid of a piano?
Yes, I actually exclusively are. We
Hmm.
have like a 12-foot grand in the theater, and I exclusively use this unless I get some piano player that's like, no, I got to have the open lid, and you got to double mic it, quad mic, whatever. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
There
And
was
that is rare, but I regularly, this is my go-to piano mic. I'll just shove this in there in the middle between the low and the highs on a, honestly, most of the time, just on a microphone envelope. And plug it in and away we hide the cable so you don't see it hanging down, and rock and roll. And it sound you just high or low pass it and high pass it, and there
it's
you go.
good. Yeah, it's solid. Sick.
So that's kick in, of course. Like you said, Kelly shoe, love the Kelly shoe, just lives in there. Throw a little 1 foot cable on it, it's great.
Perfect.
My kick out mic, I kind of experiment with tons of kick out mics. It really just kind of depends on my how I feel that tour. Really, like I've
Yeah.
tried everything. Actually love the 52 just for the stupid amount of beefy low end you can get out of it. Since you can get so much sharp attack out of the 91 anyways.
Hmm.
So occasionally, depending on the band and maybe even the PA that day, I love a 52. Or actually, what I've been using recently in the last couple of tours is a Heil PR40 on a Kelly shoe in there. I've tried, outside on a LP claw and inside on the Kelly shoe, and both are great. I might go back to miking it on the outside because I just feel like I got a little more of that oomph, that just low butt push. That's
Yeah,
such a
totally.
bad term to say, even low butt push. Yeah,
I
I'm gonna get roast me in the comments on that one. Um, but yeah, it just has that like subwoofer oomph to it, and I just love the way those sound.
yeah.
Shout out Ash for hooking me up with that. Next snare, I use just like you said the M80, the short barrels, like you just picked up. I actually forgot to pull it out, so
I'll just hold up my.
there you go.
It's the 81, but they look exactly the same.
Exact just black. So
Yeah,
literally that guy on snare top, and love it. It's just I can really get that low mid just thump out of the snare and also get like the attack, really snappy attack out of it. I've also tried them on snare bottom and love them on snare bottom. But actually, what I've been using in the last few tours is this guy. Is this the Shure Beta 98 AMP
mm.
that typically you see a lot of these on toms. Actually, I think we just talked about that a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
But,
I was saying I wanted to. I think I was on the other version where I was saying
right.
I want to switch to those potentially for my toms. I want to try them out.
Yeah, these are awesome because they're super. I'll try and even hold it up like closer. That it's super tiny, and the gooseneck is really sturdy. It's not like most gooseneck mics. Just for anybody who hasn't seen this mic, it's just the gooseneck is really sturdy, and even if you whack it, it pretty much stays in place. And it's a condenser, so you really get that sizzly, bright attack and clarity out of it. So I put this on snare bottom, super awesome, and it's just tight, lives right under there. And then I LP claw the M81, so it's literally just two cables, boom, done.
Sick.
And then next for toms, kind of like you, I have the Sennheiser 904s instead of the 604s. Um, they have they're sonically pretty similar to the 604s in my opinion. Some people could debate
Yeah,
otherwise.
I feel like
Just in
they're a
my
little different.
experiments, they're similar. I mean,
Yeah,
they are a little different, but they're I mean,
yeah, same idea. Yeah,
yeah, more or less. I'll just say more or less the same thing, um, for layman's terms.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I just like these mainly over the 604 because it's the metal. You got the metal housing. They're just a little more sturdier. Um, and Sennheiser gave us a great deal on these when we upgraded our wireless. We got the G4 wireless for guitars.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Um, so yeah, I really like the 904s all across the toms. I've even put them on snare bottom. I've even used them on snare top. I mean, all on
Yeah,
anything really. I've seen people use them on guitar cabs,
yeah.
whatever. It's a dynamic mic. You can honestly talk into it. It just they work great. Um, Actually, I think I got the chance to mix Beartooth, and I believe Connor, the drummer, was using uh, one of these like on a little gooseneck that day, if I'm not mistaken. Could have
Oh,
been him or somebody else.
for like vocals.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
I,
because he does like some background
yeah.
vocals, and if it wasn't him, it was another band on the stage that day, and I just am mixing up drummers who were singing. Um, but yeah, anyways, so yeah, super awesome mic. Then what I actually got recently, thank you Connor, the Telefunken M60s.
Yeah, those are
So I've
sick.
been using these on underheads. Sorry, I'm just like choking on my spit from these stupid freaking braces that I just got.
No, you're
Again,
good.
roast me in the comments. So yeah, these guys, I've been using these on underheads, and this was another one of those scenarios where, as soon as I got on the stage after the show, Steven looked at me. He's like, "Dude, that's the mic I want on my cymbals. They're so clear, they're so crisp. I can hear every little ping and pong I hit, if no matter how light or how hard I hit. This is the mic he likes." And out front, honestly, I've used a ton of overhead mics, and I keep coming back to this one. Large diaphragm, small, whatever. This guy is awesome, and it's super small, and you can get it anywhere. Even if you use it on snare bottom once or twice at the theater,
Makes sense.
and even acoustic, um,
Makes sense.
just as a DI and acoustic kind of scenario at home, and they've worked out great.
Yeah, I'd love to swap out my ADX 51s with a couple of those and give them a shot.
Yeah,
So I think
we
that was one of the things that I was gonna probably try for the middle of this year, but
I definitely
oh well.
I recommend it like friend to friend.
Yeah,
when you can, I'll just say, Connor, send my boy some of those because he needs them. Um, and then another pencil condenser that I use is actually the little Sennheiser E614s. These tiny,
Yeah.
tiny little guys. I use this on a hi hat actually right now, and have used them on acoustics and underheads. In a bind, when I'm mixing more than one band, I'll throw these on underheads as well. And
Hmm.
I mean, love them. They're great all around. Can use them on just about anything you need a small little pencil condenser for.
Yeah, those are cool.
And that's pretty much my drum package. Oh, I'll mention I use that one of those on China and actually a couple for my crowd mics just because I don't have real crowd mics and that's just what I've been using. Getting away with it. I actually stole that idea from Chris from ABR.
Yeah, because he puts them on the stands. Yeah.
That's exactly what
Yeah.
I do. I was like, I like that idea because I don't have to build two more little stands. I can just clip it on there and patch it in off my downstage vocal snake and rock and roll. And so that's kind of my cheat that I've been using from him.
Yeah.
And
I was going to do that as well and also steal that from him. Shout out Chris. But uh, so for anyone who doesn't know, when you're on molded in ears and stuff, you're basically in your own little world. Like the seal is so tight that like most of
it's
the
a
time
total bubble.
unless you get them like ported or something, like you can't hear the stage.
Right. If somebody's talking to you face to face and you're like not in a microphone, like
You can't
you
hear it.
don't hear it. It's just like like you just don't hear what they're saying.
So a lot of times bands put crowd mics up so that they can hear like people cheering, people singing along. If somebody yells something stupid at them, my guys always ask me for them, and I have it built into our mixer for their ears that there's two channels to have
Mm-hmm.
stereo, and every tour where they're headlining where I can do it, and I have the time for it, I'll always set them up for the first like 4 shows, and then I'll go and look at their mixes, and I'm always like, "Hey guys, it's there. If you want it,
Right.
it's there." Because
Yeah, and
they're always on their phone messing with their mixes on their
right.
X32, and like it's like a week in, and I've told them every day, and like
And they
I've
don't use them.
sometimes I've put it up for them a little bit, and then they turn
Right.
it back down, and
Yeah.
so I just stop doing it, and then no
Mm-hmm.
one ever asks, and then like
Right. So
the
you
next
just gave up on it.
the
And
next
that happens and
yeah.
that's totally fine. It's funny you mentioned that because I went through the same thing with my guys. um I started out with putting two up, and I noticed Cody really really liked his, like, he, because we talked about it.
Hmm.
It's like, oh yeah, I love it. I use it a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. It's great. And then the other, I noticed the same thing on the iPad. Nobody was putting it up, and I think I mentioned it a few times, and nobody really acknowledged every day. Just nobody did it. Nobody put it up. So I stopped putting up the other side and just really put up Cody's
Yeah.
because he likes it. And then I tried to do the same thing where I was like, I just didn't put it up for a show or two, and Cody was like, "Hey
I need
man,
that.
where's my mic, dude?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't think you really cared that much, but yeah."
Yeah.
And I've been doing, of course, every day since then. But it was just that silly, like, "Oh, I missed that. I liked it." And I was like, "Oh, really? You liked it that much? I'll keep putting it up then."
Yeah, like I'll throw it up if we're doing something cool, usually that's like going to be recorded or something, or that I'm recording for them.
Hmm.
Um, but other than that, I've just kind of given up on it because it's
Hmm.
like I don't do it. I stop doing it, and then eventually someone will be like, "Hey, do we have crowd bikes?" And I'll be like, "Yeah," and I'll put them
Do
back
you
up.
want? Right.
I'll put them back up, and then I'll
And then
check.
notice,
Yeah,
right, and
check it.
nothing happened. Yeah.
They
Right.
never did it, and no one ever did it. Or
Hmm.
like I was saying, there's like times where I kind of tucked it into some people's mixes,
And
and then
notice it come back out.
they
Yeah.
immediately turned it down, and they were just like, "I
Hmm.
don't like that." And I was just like,
Yeah.
"Okay, cool." Um, all right, so that's both of our packs, so that's pretty cool.
So I guess I just didn't mention a vocal mic, so that was my drum pack. Um,
Oh, right,
yeah,
right.
I guess so. Since we're just mentioning that funny the back and forth of the crowd mics, there's been a few times where I also haven't put up Steven's China mic because I don't use it,
Yeah,
most of the time unless we're outdoors. And where then he'll be like, "Oh, dude, I really could have used that China mic today," because it might have just been like a dead room or so, you just couldn't
yeah.
hear that well. And I was like, "Oh shit, I'll put it back up." course, vocal mics are M80s. Uh, I was using an M81 on, so Chris and Seth share a mic because they just do some background screams and some harmony vocals. Not a whole lot, but
Mm-hmm.
they do go up to the mic, so they just kind of share it. Um, so I was using an M81, but like you said and mentioned earlier, how it's a little flatter.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between the two, because I use an M80 on Cody, uh, the difference between the two, I personally was just could hear the lopsidedness of it. You know, that he was
A little
just that
brighter.
much brighter. Sorry, I
Yeah.
got away from the mic here. I
No,
am.
you,
He was just that much brighter. And then there was like one night where I think somebody kicked over his mic or unplugged it or something, where he had to like run across the stage and use the other one, and I was just like, oh shit, that's different on Cody. And just because Cody is our main clean
yeah.
vocalist, and he sings a lot of the most of the choruses and whatnot. So I actually switched out both the M80 for M80, the M81 for both M80s, and so I have like a gold one, and this is Cody's black one, just so I could literally know whose is whose and not
Yeah.
be giving each other stinky mics. And
Yeah. That's like I was saying. White Tux is like a blue with a white grill, and I think Dan's is literally just like this one actually,
mm-hmm,
but this one lives with me. Theirs live in our like rack.
right,
So it's like it's not I can't confuse the two. But
mm-hmm.
yeah, all the color options with the M82
Are
are
super cool. My only squall is that they don't make one with a switch, because I want one at front of house. That's my
oh
only. I've been asking Connor. I'm like, man, you gotta have one made with a switch, because I really need one out front. But they just don't do it at the moment. So maybe one day, I'm hoping, maybe for Christmas or something, they'll change their minds. I don't know.
yeah,
So maybe
they're
if this video gets popular enough, they'll do it.
make my man a switch mic.
That's right.
They
Um,
what was I gonna say? I don't remember. Doesn't matter.
And then I guess I'll just mention Britain's vocal mic is a Shure stick with which I just realized the battery is still in it, so that's bad. I'm gonna pull those out right now. I'm a bad employee here. Holy crap! I always tell them pull batteries out of packs, but when you come home from COVID expecting a gig in in a week and then don't,
Yeah, like
you get things like that.
yeah, I don't think I took the batteries out of ours. They're just sitting
So
in the warehouse.
yeah. Anyways,
Oh
we'll
well,
get off that
it'll
subject.
it'll be
We're
fine.
jinxing ourselves. It'll
It'll
be
be
fine.
fine.
It'll be
It's
good.
fine.
Anyways, Sure stick, M80 capsule again with a little grill, the gold grill, just because Rockstar gold. Come on, have to have it. It's the thing.
Oh, that's what I was gonna say a second ago. Is that I know for Fit Kirby just got a wired M80 for himself for home because
Mm-hmm.
he's been doing a lot of vocal stuff at home, and I know he's like featured on some band stuff. And we were talking about what to get him just to get a decent like little setup for home. I know he was using a warm audio for a second,
Okay,
um,
yeah,
and I think he sold it and he got a custom M80 where he got one of the wood grain ones.
yeah. Those are pretty cool.
Those
I
are
like those.
so sick.
I kind of want. I mean, I. It's weird. I like the color pink just because shell pink. I like the shit. Like I have a shell pink guitar, and
Hmm.
so I really want a pink M80 with a switch. That's just kind of like my dream front of house mic. And yeah,
All
dumb
right, so
little side note there.
so we talked about our packs. So one thing I just thought of, let's talk guitar mics because since we both don't tour with bands that need them, still
Oh
worth
yeah,
it
I
to
can pull
talk
something
about.
out right here. Yeah, you go ahead. I'll pull this mic out.
I'm pretty easy. I think I don't know where mine are because they don't live in my case or in my closet somewhere. Before we went cabless, I experimented a lot with guitar mics. Just because I know tone is like a really important thing to me, and I know at the time when we were using cabs, Bob Fitz guitarist still toured with us, and I know tone he's a huge tone guy. I think the last setup that I had that I really enjoyed, I don't remember what it was. It was either I've always used 906s from Sennheiser, the flat black ones.
Yeah. Uh huh.
I love those. Sometimes you can get a little bit too much stage bleed on like a weird stage,
Yeah.
but tonally those are sick. I started combining those with Just I think the first thing I originally combined it with was a PR30 from Heil,
Mm-hmm.
which I enjoyed, and then I ended up switching the PR30 out for 57s, and I think that was the last thing that I was using that for. Um, yeah, but like usually if I have to use a guitar mic, like if I'm at home, I'm usually using the 906s or just some 57s just because it's easier.
Right.
Um,
It just yeah.
like if I'm recording or something, like I'll bust out the PR30s, or if I know that I'm doing a band that the PR30 is gonna really sit well with, like a lot of high gain stuff, I feel like is really cool through the PR30.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of like um, a lot of the really extreme sides of metal, like outside of metalcore, like doom and stuff like that, the PR30 is awesome in. But just like having the 906 where you can just put it flat against the grill and even hang it, and
Yeah,
you
I
know,
hang them all the time at home here. Yeah.
it's they sound great, works perfect.
Yep.
That 57, I don't know. What about you?
Mm-hmm. For me, I was you already brought up Heil, so I'll start with Heil. I actually I've used the PR31 BW. I believe that's for Bob Workman, if I remember his name
Yeah,
correctly. Yeah, the
yeah.
Bob Workman one. So it's like the shorter version of the PR30. So I've got a couple of those, and I've used those on. I like them because the diaphragms are
Keep talking.
super wide. Um, they're like an inch and a half, if I'm not mistaken. They're super big. So when you put them up on a speaker or even a bass cabinet, I've done a couple times. They just capture a ton of tone. Like it's unexplainable. They just have this punchy, warm, almost also but airy characteristic to them where they just cut through the mix really nicely. So I like those. I've even used where is it?
I just realized that they were behind me the whole time. So while we're on it, uh, this is the Sennheiser 906 I was talking about. Little
Mm-hmm.
flat guy, doesn't have a silver face. The silver face is the 609. I think these are have a little bit more beef to them,
Yeah.
um, over the
It's kind of
609.
like the difference of the 604 and the 904. I mean the yeah, it's just they're like kind of
Little,
the same thing, a little different.
yeah, and
Until
then
you really get in front of it, it's you yeah.
this is one of my two PR30s I have. I have like the OG gold champagne ones. You can see on this one, it's gaffed on the bottom because I got um, screwed by TSA.
Yeah.
I had to check my stuff. I don't remember when this happened, but there's a screw right here that helps hold the body. Like the
Yeah,
body, this
yeah,
whole part onto the bottom of the
the
mic.
clip. Yeah.
They somehow managed to remove that screw
Oh,
in
lovely.
in transit. So
Yeah.
it's held together by gaff because I haven't
Have to.
been used. I mean, I haven't. I did it for the tour, and then I think after that tour, we stopped using cabs.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
it
like
just has been like that.
and like I said, like these are really expensive, and unless like, it's not that they're expensive necessarily. It's just that like if I'm doing
For a
if I'm
microphone, for a dynamic, for what it is, kind of, I mean, they're a couple hundred
yeah
bucks.
if
It's
I'm
not $100 57. It's not like,
if I'm doing a gig at home, like at a venue I work at here or something, or for a band that asks me to here, uh, unless I know that this is really going to suit them, I kind of keep it at home just because I don't want anything to happen to them. I don't want to lose
yeah,
them or something.
right. Like if you're gonna do like a pretty like in the sake of tribute bands, for every 10 there's one like at one that like is actually really good.
Yeah,
Not to talk shit on tribute bands, sorry guys. I used to play in one. um
I
but
used to.
yeah, I'll break them out for like if you get a good Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd tribute band, like I get them through the theater where you're like, and they even bring production and lights and everything. Like
Mhm.
they're a real touring, gigging band. So I'll be like, oh hell yeah, I'll bring in some nice mics because I'm gonna actually get to drive some fun music today, versus just like the dad rock kind of, local open mic night scene where you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna use some house 604s and some 57s and 58s and rock the gig.
Yeah, like, and a lot of time when I'm home, I end up just because of like the main places that I work at home, I end up doing like a lot of, like I was saying, like really extreme sides of metal and stuff like that. A
Mhm.
lot of really crazy high gain, like more than like metalcore, like more
Yeah,
like
yeah, I know you
death metal
that. That's
world.
kind of that
But
side of
like
the world you're on.
this is awesome on like any kind of real grimy, gross
Yeah.
chainsaw guitar. This
Yeah,
is just
or
like,
even bass. Like I was saying, I've used
yeah,
them on bass a
totally.
couple of times just because somebody has a really crappy DI output or
Yeah.
something, and I'm just like, you know what, fucking, I'm just gonna throw a mic on you and call it a day.
Speaking of which, I have this right here because I realized it was over here. I used to use this on bass a lot for when we had cabs. I kind of switched between D6. I experimented a bit. I had a D6 on a bass cab, which I thought was pretty cool. I used a. It's not in here. I used to live in my case. PR 48, I think it is. It's the kick
Yeah,
mic.
yeah, they're short kick mic.
It's
Yeah,
black and red.
yeah, that thing.
Yeah, that thing is insane on bass cab.
Mhm.
But for the longest time, I did a lot of RE20,
Yeah, there.
um, which is unbeatable. Not
Yeah,
unbeatable, but it's like pretty insane.
I've even used those on like stand-up bass and cello and just like weird stringed instruments where I'm like, well, this is
Kick
what I got left in the drawer, and this is what I'm doing today.
kick out,
Kick out, yeah,
yeah, it can be
yeah.
cool.
hmm
And it's again like these are sick
Or
for
concert bass drum.
all that
I
stuff.
do a
I
lot of
mean,
orchestra here at home, so when I do like
that
the
makes sense.
strings or brass and stuff like that,
I should be using this probably now because it's like the broadcast mic, you know.
right?
But
But
like this thing's crazy build. Like that's something that besides the tonality of it and everything, crazy build quality. I had this on stage with Every Time I Die,
mhm,
which was kind of a
enough said.
terrifying thought because it was
Yeah,
just like such an expensive mic, but I was
yeah,
just like, I got to do it because they run such cool like gear. I was like, I have to
yeah,
do a
right. Of
DI.
course. And that's the coolest thing about that band is because they're so wild and crazy on stage, and I'll just say they are the nicest dudes off stage because I've toured with them too, and they're really great dudes. But watching them, from the crowd, you're like, oh my god, these guys are nuts. They're throwing it, jumping
Yeah.
off the guitar cabs. Oh my god, my mics. But
See,
they're I feel like they somehow know how to jump around all that stuff in a way where it's not completely damaging unless they're just going on.
so that was where having this on that tour. I think I was just using this in a DI from both the guitars, but like this is another awesome advantage of this guy since it's so small. It's like you can't knock it over. Like even on a stand, it's like
Yeah,
you
it
can't.
just yeah,
This, however,
it's so heavy.
I looked up on stage a bunch of times and it was just I was like, why
Just
is I was like, where's all my tone on my bass? It's just a lot of
it's like,
sub and
oh,
stuff.
because
And
you're
it's
it's the floor.
yeah. And then their guitar tech at the time, Brandon, would just be like,
Oh, okay.
I think it's here. I think it was sitting here.
Brandon, what's his name?
Yeah.
He was in that one band. I think I know who
Lions
you're talking about.
Lions, I
Yeah,
think.
I know him.
Yeah. He's awesome. But yeah, there's so many times where he would just be like, "Did I put it back in the right place?" And I'm like, "It worked. It doesn't matter." Like it sounded fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. I've been through that situation where you're like, well, it's gone now. Everybody's jumping all over the place, and I can't swim through the crowd to get there. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Uh, cool. Is there any other like
I'm
stuff
trying to think as far
you
as
do
like,
any other like weird mics? Because I have a weird one that I do. I started doing that I really enjoy. Um, I don't know if you have any on the top of your head. If not,
I'm
I'll
trying
just
to think, but you can go ahead first.
um. So I recently started doing this one. It was before our last headliner, and recently I've just been mixing a lot more studio stuff or recording a lot more studio stuff or whatever
hmm
videos, live videos for people. Um, so I was just experimenting with new things and looking up stuff, and started doing an extra drum mic on this last tour, I think it was, with Jared's kit that I actually really liked. It's again like the overheads where you can't use it in every room. Um, and this is going to sound really weird because I'm just holding a 57, the
Right.
most normal mic.
I think I might know what you're getting to, but go
Uh,
ahead.
just a lot of people. It has different names. The name that I know it as is the worst, German for sausage. Because the dude who invented it calls it the sausage mic. It's a kit mic. Basically, you sneak it into your drums. Like, say this is your kick drum,
In the
parallel,
snare, yeah.
yeah, parallel on the and to the kick by the drummer where the beater
Yeah.
head is.
It's like under the ride between the kick and the snare,
Yeah,
between the tom. Yeah, it's like
equidistant
pointed
between
at them
equidistant between the snare,
and
theoretically
the
your two
kick.
toms, and
Right.
the kick.
Right. And
And
you kind
it's
of get like some of the snares, some of the beater, the kick,
yeah,
some of the floor tom.
it's like a
You
room
kind of get a
mic.
wash of the kit a little bit. And I haven't personally done that myself, but I've actually been very curious about it because a buddy of mine um, who gigs in a country band,
Hmm.
he plays a CNC drum kit, and I do too. So shout out, homie. But we call it a side address mic. Um, and it's he actually just uses I forget what particular condenser he uses, but it's like a pencil condenser that he sticks in there. The same kind of thing, just kind of between the snare and the kick there. And he's more of a studio guy, so that's when I was the first time I saw, I was like, "What the hell is that mic sticking like under your ride there for? What the hell are
Looks
you doing?"
kind of weird, but
He's
yeah.
like, and he explained it to me. He's like, "Well, I've got like a really like open kind of sound where he doesn't gate his drums too hard."
Hmm.
Um, because he's a really kind of his fills are really fast and
Dynamic.
dynamic, so you can't really clamp them down too hard. Um, so that's just kind of his approach, and so I've been really curious about finding the right mic to attempt something like that, and also like I don't know if I necessarily need it with Steven, um, but I would like to try it with some type of drummer.
Yeah, it's not a thing that's ever necessary per
Right.
se. Um,
It's I'm
it
bored. I have all the time in the world to try. I have some sound check time.
yeah, it was one of those things where like we've been talking about underheads a lot. Again, I guess we should have just probably gone over that a little bit more. Anyone who doesn't know, basically, you have your overhead mics. Instead of having them coming down onto your kit, you have them under the cymbals. It gives you a little more control of what you're hearing. Usually, I feel like you end up getting more cymbal than overall kit. Where if you're up top, you kind of get more of the kit, or not more of the. You just get more of the kit. You still get enough
You just
cymbals.
kind of get like everything, like all of the symbols versus so like when it's under because I kind of stick it way up there, like I don't want to say way up there, but I point it towards the bell instead of in the middle or towards the edge of the cymbal. So I
Okay,
kind of like when I put it in there, I kind of aim it towards the bell. And I don't know if that's necessarily the right or wrong technique. It's just kind of what I've been doing because I saw it once, and
if it
it's
works
what
for you.
it's been working for me. So roast me. Anyways, um, so yeah, I kind of point it towards the bell, and kind of some nights I kind of pull it back and push it up just to try and see the differences. And I haven't quite perfected what I prefer.
Same.
It really just again depends on the room, and like we mentioned earlier, it's almost so rare that I even get to use them that I'm like, I don't like. I just haven't perfected my underhead. And also another thing, I only really use. I do the hi hat, two on the Telefunkens on the crashes, and then one on the China because he rarely uses the ride cymbal honestly for a few blast beat parts and stuff anyways. So um, I just haven't been doing the ride, and he hasn't even asked about it. And I get the wash anyways. And like I said, just not needing overheads has
Yeah,
been my thing.
I have one of these guys under our ride at all times just because fits the same way. Where Jared likes to crash on his ride,
Okay,
which you don't really need this for underneath,
right.
But he does do a couple parts in some of their songs where it's just the bell,
Yeah,
and
he's a
I
bell guy.
yeah, and like since he likes to crash on it, usually he has a little bit of a washier ride, which
Like a crash ride
yeah,
with a
which
gnarly bell on it.
well, usually it means that the bell's not as strong for me.
Right.
So if I don't have this there and I need it, sometimes it's just you can see him hitting it, but you just can't really hear it. Um, but my reasoning with the Wurst was there once we started playing, once we were on the in ears, I should say, and I was doing the underheads, and we started playing bigger rooms, um, or just bigger PAs like festivals and stuff. I kind of noticed that I felt like there wasn't something really gluing my kit together per se.
Right.
Which like we were talking about
Because
when
you have
you're
to gate so hard that sometimes like the fills get choppy,
well,
or
it's
not like it just. I don't know what the
No,
term
no, no.
is.
I know what you're saying, but like since it's metal, it's the drums are gated really hard because you really just want the transient.
Right.
You don't want
It's really
necessarily.
precise. It's a real time, sensitive thing. So you don't want the floor tom to just be like boom.
You don't. Well, you don't even really want the as much of the tone. It's more
Right.
of just
It's just that
literally this
attack.
the attack.
You feel it.
So I just kind of noticed that with the underheads, there wasn't. It wasn't that it was bad, as it still sounds awesome. I mean, Jared's drums are awesome. He's a great player, but he uses an SJC kit, so it sounds awesome. But I kind of noticed when we got to bigger rooms, bigger PAs, that there was just like a little bit of me that was like the cymbals kind and the close mics kind of don't mesh as much as I wanted. Like I was saying, there's not like a glue there. So I started doing that room
Right.
mic, or not the room, the verse, which is like, you know, I'd seen some guys do it before and I'd heard about it. I know that the guy's original intention was he was like, yeah, I like room mics when I record my drums because he's a recording engineer, and but
Hmm.
he was like, but room mics are washy and you can't dance to a washy room mic. So if you kind of do this, you get the whole picture of the kit and you can blend it in, and
Hmm.
it's just punchier. Which when I've started doing it, I only started doing it on the last tour um, that we only played 5 shows of, so I didn't totally get. A,
Didn't really nail it down, but
yeah,
it's a cool thing to practice. It's
uh,
cool you mentioned that. You're inspiring me to do it because I want to.
well, it was like we were playing pretty decent venues, but right when it ended is when we were really hitting where I would have really gotten to play around with it.
Right.
I think I talked about it in the last one. One of our last shows was House of Blues Cleveland. Um, it was probably the biggest PA of that tour to that point.
Right. Right.
Um, so I was like sick, and in that,
Finally, some juice.
well, dude, in that room with that like kit mic, um, it was there. Like that glue I was looking for was there. I had to play with the EQ a little bit to get it where I wanted
Right.
it
You
to
had to like
sit.
pull out some weird frequencies that you didn't think about. It's like it's a weird thing that it's a trial and error thing, and it's
It was cool. Dude, I really liked it. I don't remember if I did it before then. I don't. I don't think that I did. But me and Jared had talked about it and just telling him what the idea and kind of like, yeah, you just kind of blend it in. Like I'll
right.
compress it really hard and you blend it in and it just kind of gives you a bigger picture. He was really excited on that idea, and it's one of those things where once we used it, he was like, yeah, this is cool. And once I actually got to use it out front, I was like, yeah, this is it. Like this is sick. So it's probably something I'll continue doing, messing around with. Who knows? Maybe I'll keep it. Maybe I won't. I really like it so far. I've done it in
Hmm.
a couple like live stream things I've done since then, and for like a live stream setting, it's
Yeah, probably is super
really cool,
helpful. Yeah.
really cool. Like you get such a better picture. I
Hmm.
would if that's if you do it right.
Right.
If you aim it kind of weird, sometimes
It's
it'll get
kind of
weird.
like parallel drum compression. It's like it can be done right and it can be not right.
Very wrong.
Or yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
which is a whole nother topic that we could even talk about.
yeah.
Because I used to love parallel compression, but now I'm just like, no, just put it in a bus and crush it. And
I
that's it.
I use a ton of parallel now. Um,
Hmm.
but
Also,
yeah,
depending if you have the bus
yes,
capability, the bus count, because when you're only got 16, it's kind of like fuck.
yeah. You're like you run out quick.
Yeah, super quick.
So okay, so we talked about mics for the most part, and then we were gonna do a different thing where we were gonna show your console, which I think we're still gonna do. You're just gonna record it later because it was so
Yeah,
hot. It wasn't our stream thing to each other wasn't really
literally
working.
wasn't even working anymore.
Um,
Yeah,
let's
I'll just do that one night when it's like cool out or something in the
yeah
next few
let's
weeks. And
let's just talk about consoles then, I guess, for a minute if you want, since
cool,
you
yeah, let's roll. I got a few more
so
minutes.
so you're a Midas boy.
I am a diehard Midas fan, and a lot of people will gawk at that. Some people will be like, "Oh yeah, brother." Um, yeah, it just kind of started where that's what I learned on. Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
um, I kind of fell into sound by accident. I might have mentioned that in the last video. Um, And I started out, of course, just on like X32s, M32s, and then my first, when I got up to the Lyric, that was the first time I was on a Pro Series console. It's a Pro 2C,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's when I became familiar with and was regularly mixing too. Was on a Pro 2C instead of just the here and there monitor mix gig on an X32 or something like that. A couple times a month, it was like my first real house gig. Here's the Pro 2. You're the front of house guy. Figure it the hell out.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was when I just, would go to a gig, mix a show and be like, all right, so I want to figure out what this button does, or I want to do this, and just would Google, you know, how it works. And so some guys will say, I don't like the routing, I don't like this, I don't like that. But just because have spent so much time with it and have learned on it, it's frankly just I know it better than like, as let's talk about patching. Like the grid system patching, like on the Avid and Digico consoles and stuff, I'm a bit more unfamiliar with just because I don't have hands-on time with it. Can I do it? Yes, but I'll sit there like for an extra 5 minutes, like double checking that I went down the freaking thing right. The
Yeah, yeah.
just out of
You're not gonna be.
versus yeah,
So
I'm quicker with the
yeah,
Midas patching just because I know it and I'm familiar with it, and
totally.
that's just the nuances of any console is just having the quality time uh, to know anything. So and sonically, I think they sound absolutely great. I mean,
Yeah, they do.
even it's an older desk. They're not new or like some of the D Live and Digico or Avid stuff that's out now. Um, but for the era of when they were designed and what they can still do is at least I can show up to a festival or any room with 96K, and I can still hang with the big boys when we're doing playing under a big headliner or something. I don't feel like I got my little X32 or whatnot, and just being like, well, here I got my desk, guys, and that's not even a problem either because I've ripped gigs, in front of 5,000-6,000 people with my little X32C
Same.
next to Nate from A Day to Remember with his S6L, just being like, oh shit, like that's a real rig, and
Yeah,
here's my dinky little toy. But we're mixing on the same PA, and yeah, we're open in the day, and they're obviously headlining. But at least I was out there doing it, and it's a great thing to learn on, and I do truly love those series of desks just because of the simplicity of them.
yeah. I before I talk about my console experience, yeah, I'll just say the one thing to remember, like you know this too. I'm just saying this for anybody watching that's newer. No, like maybe two people in the audience will like notice that a pre doesn't sound the same.
Right.
Like if no normal showgoer is going to hear your X32
X32
next
versus
next to it.
Avid
Yeah,
S6L.
no one's going to hear. There's it's I know for us it's hard to sometimes differentiate between being like, oh man, everyone's gonna notice.
Right.
When you get down to it, no one cares as long as your mix is good and whatever you have is working. No one, almost none of the time do I think anyone cares or will notice. Like no
Right. But
no.
and I think you're absolutely correct because you're right. Nobody truly notices, but you as an engineer, as a production person, or not even as an like the light guy can watch it. The bandmates can watch it out in front of the other band members can
Mhm.
watch a different set and come out and watch that. The crowd can feel it. There's an energy difference. There
Oh
really
yeah,
truly
oh yeah,
is, and you
oh yeah.
can. And of course, bands just put off a different energy, but that aside, you can literally see that, okay, like you're driving on a X32, it sonically sounds this way, and you got through your show fine, and then somebody comes out with $100,000 worth of awesome rig, and it's just like, wow, there's something
No,
you're engulfed in it. It's a three-dimensional audible experience, and I'll never forget the first few times I felt that way, even just mixing on the same PA, where I've been out and then watching somebody else come up with a different console and being like, oh my god, that's what tools can do. But at
yeah,
the end of the day, it's just a matter of you're given a set of tools to do your job, you do the best you can with them, and you go on to the next job. Some days you're going to have an X32, some days you're going to have an SXL, some days you're going to have Digico, some days you're going to have a Midas Pro. If you're
yeah,
not traveling a console,
yeah.
or If you're like me, who like and I'll just mention to anybody who doesn't know, I own my console. I own my Pro one and my stage boxes and Split and Snake and all that, just because it made sense for me at home for some of the home gigs I do, and just having the consistency with Wage War. It helps you sleep at night on the bus that much more
Yeah,
when you're not
totally.
like wondering what the hell you're going to walk in tomorrow.
Well, and that
Um,
that was that was part of my main point was like, again, for any younger or newer people, that like you can't let thinking that somebody in the crowd is going to hear the difference between your pre's stop you. If like taking your own desk, taking an X32, like buying one for $1,000 or whatever, is going to help you keep that consistency. You can't let that dissuade you and be
right.
like,
Like
oh, I need a real
100%.
console.
I will 100% rather take an X32 out on a tour. Let's pretend it was 10,000 people on that, sold out crazy arena tour or something. I'd rather take out an X32 than wonder what I'm going to walk into every day, not knowing which fader button's not going to work, or if it's going to take my scene, or if it's on the wrong firmware, or whatever anomaly, or if I've never even seen that desk before. And to be frank, can I pull a mix off on every desk? Yeah, but I'll do better on something I'm more familiar with
I was
because
gonna
I
say,
know what buttons to put. I know where I'm going. If I'm scratching my balls, like I don't even know where the high pass filter is or the phase reverse or something, just
yeah,
I know what I'm looking for, but I can't find it and it's taken me too long to get there, and that's another thing I'll mention. It was so when I first started touring with Wage War, I obviously didn't have, I had a couple 58s and 57, no, I didn't have any gear.
yeah, same.
And I did my first tour with Every Time I Die, and their front of house guy Neil brought a X32 compact,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and we were in some bigger rooms, some smaller 200 cap rooms, and I was just mixing off a random desk every night. And again, being my first tour, seeing different consoles I'd never seen or even and heard of before, and watching his consistency and his show and the energy was like, oh, I need a console.
You're like, this sucks.
So, right, I was like, this sucks. And then he, later in the, we became friends, and he let me build a scene on his console and use it for a few shows towards the end of the tour, like for a week or so.
Mm,
After I got, not so afraid of, do I talk to anybody on the tour? I don't know if I'm allowed to, because just that first
yeah.
tour jitters of, I don't know if anybody likes me.
No,
Anyways,
and
um,
I don't know Neil super well, but I've worked with him at home a bunch of times, and he can be a kind of intimidating dude from what I
yeah, right.
remember.
Like he's from New York, if I'm not
Yeah, Buffalo, I
mistaken. So
think, right?
yeah, Buffalo. Like he's a hardcore dude. Like he's. So at first I was like just trying to keep my distance, and he was always cool. Just like I don't
Yeah,
want to seem annoying to this guy,
yeah.
and
Especially on the first tour, you don't want to be that guy
right.
already.
Yeah, I was like 25 at the time, and I like my first tour I was 25. A lot of guys start at like 18, 20 or so. So I kind of came into the game, I feel like a little late.
Yeah,
Um,
I think my first paid tour I was 19.
Yeah, I literally didn't do like anything more than like a weekend or like a real tour that was more than a few days. And my first tour was like a month and a half or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, a month long. So it was like my first time really out. I was just like, all right, I don't want to be a jackass. Like I just
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
get my job done and ask the right questions and fly under the radar. And he was super cool. We ended up becoming friends. We're friends on Facebook. We catch up with each other every once in a while. Um, he's a great dude. But to make a long story short, it was watching him be able to be consistent every night was like, oh man, I need an X32. And so I went home, saved up, bought an X32 compact. And that was when I really got to, learn the ins and outs of just one console, because I had it there in my bedroom and I could be pissed off at it in my underwear. Like, what the fuck? Why can't I get the iPad to connect? Like,
Yeah.
and then YouTube Drew Brasher. Okay, this is how to do it. I'm
Mhm.
sure everybody knows who Drew Brasher
Yeah.
is. Has saved our life a million times. Uh, but yeah, that was like the first time I could, really explore for several hours on end and not be wasting, my boss's time at the theater or out in the hot sun because it's Florida, like on a gig, like tinkering through the desk while people got to work or we got to, save the scene and don't touch it, don't break it.
Yeah.
So it really takes having something at home where you can fart around on it and break it and get in trouble and learn how to fix it and get yourself back out of trouble. And then that will help you in the future when you get on a desk that you don't know what you're looking for. Okay, I need to look for, you know, the phase reverse because that's what I want. And it would probably be in this section, maybe not. And it just helps you kind of, or even routing, like it gets you familiar with how to route channels or buses and stuff. So when you get on a different console, you know what you're trying to do and you don't have to ask the sound guy, like, so,
Where's this?
I need another input, you
Yeah.
know, because you know how it was like when you first started out, when you're like, okay, you understood that that was channel one in the console, that's channel two, but as far as getting like if you needed a couple more or them routed differently, like you didn't know how to fucking do that, and you didn't want to even fucking go down that screen.
Oh
And
yeah. I remember being on like my first real tour doing sound and like jumping off of whatever house guys scene because I didn't have any, and
right,
then him being like, yeah, this is on like the Matrix, and I was like, oh yeah, cool, and in my head I'm like, what the fuck is
fuck is
the
a
Matrix?
matrix, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and and I still, it's funny you say that. To this day, if I'm on a console I'm not familiar with or just don't have scenes for, like I'm going off a house dry, scene, because you also don't know like what their routing might be. They might have some crazy route. They might have fader 32 just doesn't work. So now you got to slide everything down one channel and relabel everything. So to be frank, like when I get on something that I don't mix on regularly, or like for example, we were in Australia back in February, and of course I couldn't rent a desk or fly a desk to Australia. Um, just because of budget and
Yeah.
other X, Y, and Z reasons. So I was on the house desk every night, which frankly was just what luckily was a profile. But then there was a few M32s, and there was like a I forget what else out there. Oh, there was a SD 11 out there,
Oh, those are
which
fun
was
when you.
cool.
Those are
Fun
fun.
little guy. First time on the little guy, which was cool. But like I don't know how to route an SD console. I've been on them a couple times, but that's the, hey dude, like I'm gonna need you to help me with the routing on this or how to save this down, because, or help me just get me a reverb, a delay, and a uh, uh, multiband, or whatever in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
effects. Like just show me how to like get what, I know what I want, but I don't know how to do it. Like I need your help. And that's when a house person becomes, your backbone to the show, because you just aren't familiar. Otherwise, it's like if it was a pro console, pro 2, pro 1, dude, leave me alone. Unless something's not working properly, I got this.
You'd be
um,
shocked how many times at home, uh, like my main gig here at the Nile is just an X32. You'd be shocked how many big bands come through with someone that straight up has never seen an X32, and
right.
I'm like, yo, man,
What?
this is like the easiest desk ever, and
And the most common thing, at least in our country, in this country, the X32
in
is,
America, yeah,
in America, it is like Walmart. They're on
yeah,
every fucking corner, man. It's just they're out there. You're gonna run into the X or M series. It's part of life here. It's just like,
yeah,
it's like going. It's like having to know the profiles, because outdoor festivals are profiles, and that's a
everyone.
kick in the teeth, because that's a desk that is my intimidation, where
Hmm.
I'm not super familiar with them. I haven't been on them a whole lot. I've been on them a dozen times, but it's just shit. What am I getting myself into today? Like,
Yeah, so I first first thing before I go into mine is I have a really funny quick story that I remember you were saying like, yeah, you don't know if like channel 32 is going to work. I know that for some people, unfortunately, in Utah, there's have you ever played In the Venue? It's
in
across
the venue
it's
in
across the street
Utah,
from yeah, it's across the street from Complex.
it rings a
Maybe,
bell. If I haven't been there, I've seen it on flyer, driven past it. I don't
but
know.
so I I've gone through there a couple times on tour. Unfortunately, it just was a casualty of COVID a couple days ago, I think,
Right.
like a week ago. Uh, but it was the same thing where like it was like an old analog. I don't remember what desk it was. We went
Just
through there.
some dinosaur.
Yeah, we went through there years ago with a mirror and after the burial, and I just remember the kid being like, "Yeah, I have 4 channels left." Because we just support, and like he's like, yeah, so there's got 4 channels left, and like I ended up talking to Chris who mixed ABR and Namir, Chris Rabuka, and he was nice enough that he pulled some of his lines so I could have more. But the kid was just like, cool, so now you have like 12, but just so you know, like these 3 don't really work. That button
Right. And
doesn't
it's
work.
like,
The
so it
EQ
doesn't
on that
matter. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like,
I
it
was like,
doesn't
cool, so
matter.
I'm back to 2. Awesome.
Right.
But
Yeah.
um, when I started, uh, doing audio. Um, so my first house gig, which is the one I still have, was a 2 room venue. Basement had an old, I think at the time, I want to say it was just like an old Mackie analog desk, and a bunch of outboard gear, like some DBX outboard gear and stuff. And then upstairs was a Yamaha M7, which is a digital desk, like one of the older ones,
Hmm.
for anyone who doesn't know. Um, so it's same thing as you for like even to this day, even though I don't own one and I don't use one anymore because now it's an X32 there. Um, I'm so comfortable in all Yamaha formatted anything because I
Hmm.
had to do so many shows on that M7 that had a million problems because it's 100 years old and no one had ever taken care of
Right.
it.
Right.
Um,
The
uh,
good old M7, love them. And you know
so
what? They are pretty simple. I
no,
do.
they're fine. Yeah, they're
They're
easy.
fun. I mean, do I want to mix on one ever? No, but we have them down here. There's a few
Yeah,
venue like the state college has them in the theater here. So when I freelance over there, there's one at front of house and monitors, and it's what I got for the day. It's what I'm getting paid to do, and I'll work on it, no problem. I can do it. I'll
yeah,
definitely do it. We have one in our monitor world at the Lyric. That's we have an M7. The screen goes out sometimes and you literally have to bang it. I'm not even literally not
no, I
exaggerating. We
know.
have to bang it for the screen to come back up,
I'm
but it
sure. I'm sure none.
surely it does.
I'm sure none of the faders are like aligned right. So it's like when you're trying to just get it to be sitting at zero, half of them have to be at like +5 or like minus
Right, yeah.
10. But
Yeah, it's a little, wonky. Um,
I,
but it works consistently. And you know what? For some reason, the at least the older cats that come through,
they love it.
because we, like I said, we do a lot of that kind of like tribute band stuff where we have like some older dudes. Um, that's what they know more than
Oh yeah,
the newer stuff. So they're like, oh, I know more than me than the N7 because that's what they prefer even.
yeah.
Um, so it's just kind of it's ironic. You
Um,
can't manipulate a whole lot with like routing or whatever. At least not that I've explored with, but it
yeah, you can, but I mean, since it's older, it is still limited.
right.
Yeah. So like, I did that. I had a couple house gigs that were just X32s. Um, until I started touring. I didn't get to rent or have my own desk on a tour until last year. Um, yeah, last year was the first time I ever got to do that. Just budget reasons and all kinds of stuff like that.
Right.
And like I don't own one. Um, and for me, none of the bands I work for are even from my like part of the country. So it's like
Yeah, so it makes
I
it really hard you'd have to leave
yeah,
it there or
or
ship
fly
it.
with it
You
and
would need something flyable, which would be an X32 compact. And like
yeah,
I flew mine to Europe twice,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
And
I know Tyler from Chelsea Grin flew his to Europe when we were over there with them.
yeah. So
Um,
those makes complete sense if you can't, and it's a bitch because it'll cost you some money, but at least it gives you that consistency
yeah,
that you're looking for.
yeah. So
Um,
I spent the majority of my career jumping from desk to desk every night, which I'll give myself credit for. I got pretty good at it, um, to the point where I'm I'm comfortable on every platform. I've been comfortable on every platform for like 3 or 4 years, like except for SSL because I've never used an SSL one of the
right.
live
I haven't
desks.
used one either.
But other than that, super comfortable on everything. Which was yeah, like you were saying, it was a fun learning curve. First couple tours I had, it was a lot of like annoying whoever the tour manager was until they would tell me what the text they got advanced was,
Yeah.
or like the text specs, and then like if I
You're
wasn't
always having to search, or even like I would
Google it,
find
yeah,
myself Googling, like just looking for YouTube videos of like,
watching
can you
overviews,
see front of house, or is there a picture of like a
yeah.
Google image of front of house somewhere? Can you find it?
So I did that for a long time, which I'm actually really happy that I had to do because I feel like I
It
understand.
shapes, yeah, it
I
shapes
feel
you.
like
And
I understand a lot of desks and I understand it made me better at just mixing in general. But I understand desks, which is awesome because there's still times, like when we go to Europe and stuff, where there usually isn't a budget to rent
right,
something. In the U.S. now, we've been doing that.
right,
So end of last year, um, the first tour that I might might have had one before this, but I just can't remember off the top of my head. Um, but we did that European run with As I Lay Dying, and it wasn't every day, but for a good amount of the shows, I had a Yamaha. I had a QL.
The QL and the CL are so similar that I always get them backwards.
I don't remember what I don't remember what number it was, but it was a QL, which is awesome because I love the CL series.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And there were some giant shows, and it was me and the guy mixing Unearthed, who's from over there. We're both sharing, and he didn't really know anything about it, so it was kind of fun to be able to flex a little bit and like
Yeah.
I like built his scene for him or helped him
Right.
build his
Yeah.
scene. But like so that was really cool, and it was awesome because it was just like I was like, oh shit, yeah, I know this desk already like super well. I mean, like
Mhm.
at this point I know them all, but I was like,
Right.
this is like the
But
one I
it's like it's
really
homey. It's
know.
like you can
Yeah,
get on it and just grab, boom, and it's a muscle memory. It's like just kind of like anything. Uh, it's like playing a video game. You just know where to feel for that button. It's like you don't even have to look. You just know to avoid the mute groups over there. That's your compressor. That's your gate. So
yeah.
you're gonna select this. Just
It was nice to be on a show that I don't remember how big the first or second show was. It was like 4,000 people or something. It just being like knowing like any of those days where it was giant and I had the extra production, I had my desk that like my mix was wild because it's just like, oh yeah, like
it's
day
there.
one,
It's already in there.
day
It's like you don't even have to transfer the file. There's not going to be some weird hiccup or some piece of it missing because even that occasionally happens where,
yeah,
yeah, your labels will be there and your EQs, but your gate and
something
compression will
corrupts.
be gone,
Yeah,
or your bus routing will be gone, or just something an anomaly, and you're like, fuck me.
yeah, like it was just nice because I remember like the first day there was just first day stuff and it was a giant show and I remember their production manager being like, yo, because we were opening, he was just like, yo, you can line check really quick, but like you don't get to fully check. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. And like
Right,
literally
yeah, it's
just was like, oh cool, it all
as
shows.
long as you can pop inputs like kick, snare, chug, chug, check.
Oh dude, and
Yeah,
like I was saying, like I already had a scene for it, I already knew it inside and out, so I was like, yeah, it's fine.
you're there.
I did it in like 3 minutes, and it was just like, yeah, we're good. And they're like, you sure you don't want more time? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. Immediately after that, we did a tour with Ice Nine Kills, and Travis, who I talked about earlier, was mixing Light the Torch, and me and him split a uh, Allen and Heath D Live.
Right.
What is
Okay,
it?
I think I
50,
remember seeing those pictures.
yeah, 1500. The really
The small guy.
compact one.
I
And
think that's
yeah,
a 35 if I'm not mistaken. But again,
35C or
numbers.
C35 or
That's what
whatever.
Chris has, and that's what
Yeah,
I use his in Europe.
love it. I if I buy a desk, it's gonna be that.
Okay, cool.
Literally, it was like we were talking about with like the Pro Series and knowing that was the first desk that I've ever mixed on that we were playing a bunch of places that I had mixed a million times, and I had never gotten my mix to the level it was
Right.
at with like,
But then you had something that you with consistency that you liked that sounded great
oh well, dude, and
and
it's just
actually had the preamp, the audio quality, and yeah, I
like
totally wholeheartedly feel that. That's yeah.
yeah, it's just like with that desk specifically. I don't. Somebody told me something about it running actually it technically over 96K or something, but I don't remember what they said, so I don't know if that's true or not. But like, yeah, 96K, and like, dude, I don't know what it was about it. I just remember like I had used it once before that tour.
Hmm.
I played around the offline editor or whatever. Really didn't know anything about it. First show was at Bogart's in Cincinnati. First show with it, I should say, because we got it on day two.
Hmm.
Um, um, from the guy we were renting it from, and just built a scene. Literally went off the fly in a room that I personally don't like mixing. Don't think it sounds very good. The PA in there is
Hmm.
just really old. It's an old X-ray. It's tired. Um,
Oh,
and just and I don't know what it was. Literally, like we started and it was like one song in, and I was like, oh,
sick.
I'm done. But
Right.
I mean, I messed around with stuff and
Right, but you're like, oh, I'm in the hole. Like,
yeah,
I'm in the pocket. Like we're there. We're there. We now I get to play and have fun.
yeah, like their manager Corey came to a bunch of shows and like, he always comes to a bunch of shows. He's a great dude, but he always hangs out at front of house with me for a little bit because it's like makes sense. It's probably where it sounds the best. If he's not on stage, he wants to hear it and see it, and like every day on that tour, he would just be like, "What are you doing different?" And I'm like, "Nothing. It's just this box." Like
Right.
I every time I've seen Chris mix with August Burns Red, I'm always blown away because his mixes are crazy.
They're super crisp,
Dude,
super sharp.
but until I got to use that desk, now I get it because it's like he's already good, but that desk just it takes your mix that's good and just kind of like cradles it and
Hmm.
brings it up. So it's like it almost like I was saying, like we played like TLA in Philly is a great example. We played that place a million times. I've never been happy with my mix there. Literally, song two of the tour when I had the D live, and I was just like, oh, this is sick. It was literally like bring the faders up or like unmute the faders, and it was just ready. And it was just what something about it to me was just like exactly what I wanted every time, and it was perfect. So it's
That's
like the
sick. For me, I had a little different experience. I am a same thing. Chris kind of built my scene for me. We went because yeah, we
yeah,
spoke
he
about
helped you.
renting the console beforehand. It was a
Yeah,
European tour, and so I was like, yeah, man, like here's my input list. It's drums, bass, guitar, vocals, tracks. Like no surprises.
yeah,
Group the drums down. Just group everything down. Just label things everything up, and I'll EQ, gate, and comp everything down on the fly, and it'll be great. And of course, first day he gave me a tour of the console just so I could see where everything was. So and that was fine. That was great. He kind of tailored it similar, not like his, but like did a couple things like put
yeah. Things that
how
he
you can
likes.
put the buses like in the same layer as your input. So he was like, "Oh, here's your drum channels, and there's your bus at the end of it." And I was like, "Okay, cool, thanks." Like that makes sense.
Yeah, you're like
So
that's sick.
that was super helpful, and I love the layout, and I love the is going to be a somebody might murder me, but it's like the iPad-esque feel where it's just like a big touch screen and you
Yeah,
just can
yeah,
just it's
sure.
just there in front of and it's small. It's
If
not a big
if
spaceship.
if you want to do something, you can literally just go
Yeah,
like
it's all right in front of you.
there's a knob for it, but if you just like are in the moment and you're just like screw it, click, like
Yeah.
it works.
There's that like touch turn where it's like you select into. So I like that. There was definitely a ton of features that I liked about it. I struggled with my mix for the first, I want to say, like week before I really feel like I figured out the console, but I was still too intimidated to start really messing with different effects and different compressors because I know they have a lot more compressor options
What?
and whatnot on board. So I was just a little too intimidated to really start diving in just because um, I'm that way when I like get comfortable. I don't like to change it too much,
Yeah,
which I kind of regret though, because looking back, I'm like, I really probably could have dove in a little harder, but I was just being really conservative on that tour. And I just wanted to get my job done efficiently and
and
not
well, yeah,
fuck anything up,
yeah,
that too. It's just like sometimes on the fly, unless you have production days or enough sound check time. That's another thing. It's not like I got an hour and a half to sound check like a headliner on a tour. I might get a one song line check, save it down, and let the openers do their job. So I was being a little conservative, but I do think it's a great desk. I wish I had a little more time to play around with it.
uh, that it is very different than most other consoles out there, like
Yeah,
layout
very
wise, and
different.
so like I totally
It's
get like I also the first couple times I was on it, even though like I said, the first show went pretty well for me. Um, there were still little moments there,
right.
like the stock compressor on every
Yeah,
channel
like the
is
stock
real
compressor,
weird,
really weird. Like it
really
either
weird.
does nothing or way too much,
Everything.
and that's what bit me in the ass for the first couple shows
I
because
figured.
I
I
was
knew
like,
you were
no,
gonna
I
say
want
that.
the graph. I like the normal graph EQ because that's
You can
I
see
just
it. Yeah.
you can see it, and it was just a visual
Yeah.
thing, and I was just too. And that was just my mistake. I was too married to what I was familiar with, and too afraid to do something out of my realm of what I'm comfortable with. And then after like a few shows, I like 4 or 5 shows a week or so. I remember like, of course I go and watch Chris's mix and be like, why the fuck are you belittling the shit out of me every night, brother? Like, not to say that I was doing a bad job, but just like, damn, dude, you're killing it on that thing. And I'm just like, how do I get there? And he showed me, just where all the little secret spots were like, oh, there's the key filters and the gates and all the little nuances, like where is everything versus like just trying to.
The weirdest thing for me, besides the stock compressor, and kind of realizing that for the most part I didn't want to use it, was um, the way it gains. Like it's really
Mhm.
hot. And for anyone who doesn't understand what I'm talking about, like the mic coming into the desk is like super loud, and
Mhm.
it has a pad which will bring it down, but at the same time, sometimes it like almost
The
doesn't.
pad almost doesn't. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
still like you
yeah.
still need to go more. Where you're relying on the compressor to just to drop it down, as crush it down the best you can.
Which was weird, but once I figured out kind of that you're supposed to run it hotter and like, the pre's are meant to be driven a little bit like that. It became a little less scary once I kind of realized like, oh, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm actually doing this fine. Um, that was the weirdest thing for me was just like looking at how like hot something would be coming in and being like, I normally wouldn't do that, and then I'm just like, but it sounds fine.
So I'm really glad you brought this up because the same thing happened to me where the first few shows, the first week or so, I was lighting up red all over the place. I was
Everything, yeah.
clipping the desk like crazy and not like I was embarrassed. I didn't want the house guy to look at me. I didn't want Chris to look at me. I was like, nobody look at me. Nobody like don't nobody watch my meters like cuz it was just red all over the place.
Well, and
And
then
and it sounded fine. Like it sounded
yeah,
normal. Like nothing sounded clipping. It just was red. And then I'd come watch Chris's mix, and I'm like, "Well, fuck, you're
clipping.
pretty damn red too, man." And then I asked him about it. He's like, "Well, yeah, they I don't know if you've read or heard, but they actually designed the desk to clip early, or at least show clipping early, to kind of save
Yeah,
the the worship engineers, or like the what you call it, like the
when they have volunteers, someone who has like
that's the word I'm looking.
volunteers.
I
Yeah,
want to say donation engineer, volunteer engineer.
yeah.
Um, that don't know a whole lot, that are learning, and now they're on this, Ferrari of a console, and they're like, oh no, let's back you down, brother.
Well,
Let's keep you in the safe zone. So I just didn't know that. And Chris was like, no, dude,
you're
drive it
good.
as hard as you can. Like, you're good. Just don't even look at it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, see, like that was the same thing for me. Was I didn't know that,
I
and
was so visually worried about what everything was looking like on the screen. Not that anything audibly was wrong, but it was red. The compressor
well,
was acting weird. I was
it
like, what the fuck is
it's
going
got
on?
it's got the little red peak light, and
Yeah.
for anyone that doesn't know, it peaks not necessarily like you were saying, not when you're actually driving it too hard and it's like gonna distort. It peaks like 12 or something dB
I
before
heard
that.
like, yeah, like 8 or 10 decibels or something.
Yeah,
Like it's like
it's a huge gap. So it's like you're
what's it's like, what do they call it on a car when they like where it doesn't let
governor.
you go a governor? It's like, yeah, it's like a governor, man. It's like, okay, like you're clipping, but you're not really. It's just like,
It's,
hey,
it's like, hey, look
don't,
out.
yeah,
But
like
like
stop sign.
yeah, but you're like actually not close. That was the same thing for me.
Right. It's actually like, oh no, like you're good, like you're warm now. The pre is hot, brother. Like now you're there.
Well, dude, that was for the first week of that tour. It would be a thing where I learned that after like the second day. I think I asked Travis about it, and he told me he knew more about the desk, but I think he was also still fairly new to it. I think he had done one tour with it, but he was still, we were more or less on the same page. He was a little more comfortable than I was at the time. Um, but it was one of those things where even like a weekend, like you're deep in the mix, you're just like you're feeling it. It's a great
Mm-hmm.
mix, and then you like flip over to some channels and you see some red lights, and you're like, oh shit, and then you have
Yeah,
to
and
like
you're like, next page,
you're
next page. I don't
you're
even
like
want to look at it.
yeah, and then you're like, wait, no, it's fine, it's
Right,
cool,
it's
it doesn't
good, it's
matter.
good, but I don't even want to look at it, or I don't want anybody else to look at it because it looks not correct.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just a weird oblong thing you have to get over.
I don't
And so, I've noticed that on some of the, like on the profiles too. Like we were in what's that festival in the UK in the summertime?
slam dunk.
Yeah, Slam Dunk. We did that last year, and that was the first show of that little run we did, and it was a profile. And of course, I didn't have a profile scene because I don't mix on them a lot. So
Yeah, why
I've
would you?
never loved my profile scene, so I never took it with me until Australia. Now I got a pretty nice profile scene. Um, Long story short, it was, build your scene on the fly, draw, no sound check, just quick line check, make sure you got signal on the console, and band walks out on stage in front of, a couple thousand kids. And I was super nervous, and they came out the gate. I even have a video on my cell phone. Everything sounds fine. It sounds great. The sound sounds like Wage War. And I'm looking down, and the master is just red, 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 red.
It's like
And I'm
flashing.
like, fuck, dude. I'm like, I'm driving too hot. I'm gonna like this house dude is gonna come down on me in a few minutes. I'm probably destroying. I don't even know what the PA is looking like, if it's clean or red or what. It doesn't sound bad or like it's like I'm hurting anything, but when you see red, you just immediately get startled. And so for the first, couple songs, I'm like, going through every compressor and just trying to squash every last channel down just that much more, just to try to keep myself in the yellow. And the guy came up over my shoulder and he fucking put us like a piece of paper, like a timesheet or something, down on top of the meter. And he was like, "Stop fucking watching the meter, dude." And I was like, "Okay, thank you." Cool, bro.
Yeah.
And he just, it's sometimes it takes like a cool engineer that, that knows your console or that piece of equipment to like, hey, like it's okay that you're that this is happening. The limiter, you're not hitting the limiter in the PA. You're still, the PA is not hurting. You're still completely, fine. And
Yeah.
because sometimes you just can't see those things, and you're just clueless as to what the hell is going on.
Well, and sometimes, like we're talking about, with when you're on a different desk, they all react different. So
That
sometimes,
too.
sometimes red isn't actually.
Red. It's just
Yeah.
because that 20-year-old fucking Avid profile lights just don't blink right or something. I don't know. It just,
For anybody listening, still stay out of red if you don't know what you're doing.
yeah, if you don't know
Red
what
is
you're
bad.
doing, red
Red is
is
bad.
bad.
Red is
But
so
if you
bad.
know what you're doing, like,
You're fine. If you know
yeah,
you're fine, you're fine. But if you don't,
yeah.
don't do red.
And it's
Don't
one
listen.
thing to be tickling it, but if you're living in it, if it's just bad.
Ugh. But yeah, it's. I had a lot of experiences like that when I was first starting and jumping desk to desk. Most of my troubles were with Soundcraft stuff.
Soundcraft is weird. Even
I
just the layout, everything's horizontal versus vertically. That really tripped me up for the first half dozen shows
I
I
struggled
did on
so
those.
hard. I struggled so hard in a VI the first couple times I had
Yeah.
them, and they're not even like, they're honestly pretty easy, but it's just like everything's like this big.
It's just, yeah, it's small, and like I said, the I hate using the, I don't like the workflow. Fuck you. I hate that word. I hate that sentence. But
I hate the workflow on
yeah, I just, it's weird.
it.
It is a little, it is just
they
different from
sound
everything else.
they sound fine. They just
They
like
sound
the
fine.
way it's like set up is so stupid.
I hated my first few mixes on the Soundcraft. And then we did our last headliner in the States, and Polaris was our direct support, and I was mixing Polaris. Shout out to those guys because they are just such
Yeah.
a great band. As players, as a band, their music's great. They're such a solid
Never
together unit. If
never
you
met them,
haven't
but
seen them live,
heard great things from a lot of friends.
yeah, I mean,
So
you've listened to their music
yeah, I've
and
heard their
whatever.
music.
Anyways, to make a long story short, I was using house desks for them and using the Soundcrafts, and it was that band that I figured out the Soundcraft on, where I was like, oh,
I get it now.
now I get it. And it was, for me, it was, again, it's for something about, I always struggle with gates on different consoles because gates react so different
Very
on
differently.
everything. And until you've done a couple shows on every console, you don't really know the feel for the gate, especially with like the metal type drummers that you really need to clamp down on them hard. If it's a rock band or jazz band, whatever, you're not going to really even need the gate. But in our world, you rely on it so hard. At least I do.
I do too.
Um,
I do too.
so yeah, the for me, getting the feeling of a gate and keeping it, and just the filtering of the gate is so essential too. Where before I used to not even touch the key filters on a gate, but now, depending on the console, that could save your life,
Make or break. Yeah.
make or break you.
Hmm.
Um, so it's just those little nuances that, as you get to jump on different consoles. I know you had mentioned that your first few years of touring, you didn't travel a desk. In the last year or so, you have been. Where I was kind of backwards, where I spoiled myself a little bit. I had a collection of guitars, so when I came home from my first tour, and I was like, I need a fucking X32, so I sold the guitar, bought an X32, and those are pretty cheap. Those like
Yeah.
$1,500 or so. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
like not
They're not
not
too
that big
much.
a deal. So it was a little investment on my side, and also the band did we jumped to the in-ears, so with the X32 rack and the little S32 IO. So I was still sharing head amp gain with them, and just one Cat 5 in between. It's super super simple, and it works, and it was so much fun. Um, and that's when I got to the point of, we did a tour with a Mice and Men in Europe, and Brian Campbell had his Pro 2 out there, and I had my X32 on that tour, and his mix out of a Pro 2 for the same style of, for a metalcore band, obviously.
Was just huge.
Yeah, it was the obvious. I don't want to say they're the same band, but
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Same idea.
breakdown, screaming,
Same mix
mosh
ideas. Yeah.
pits. They're
Yeah.
same idea.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't believe how awesome it sounded on a Pro, and I'm like, well, that's what I work on at home, like, and I'm familiar with that. Like, that's what I wanted, and so I came home from that tour, and I didn't sleep until I bought one. I actually came home on Craigslist. There was one on Craigslist, for it was like $5,000 or $6,000. I beat the guy up to $5,000. I sold a bunch of guitars that I had, and again, I spoiled myself with buying the Pro One and really learned the inside and outside of all the patching and stuff that I never even had the time at the theater, because my output routing is, it just stays the same. I never had to change it from 1, 2,
Never
3
looked
to
at it. Yeah.
15, 16, 17. But now that I've owned one and I've had to on the fly because of whatever dumb thing, I've had to switch, a routing around, you get to learn things like that. So now when I'm on tour and we do like 2 weeks, we did 2 weeks in Australia, I didn't rent a console or bring anything. So now I know what I'm looking for. I need to route this, and I can get to that routing page and definitely do it. But I might, of course, always at like, hey, house homie, I did that correct, right? Okay, cool. So now it's nice to know that I know what I'm trying to do. And when I go out there on a tour where I don't have a console, or like when I use Chris's desk, the D
Yeah.
Live,
Yeah.
at least I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted, you know, to group down my drums, and I wanted, to do this or X, Y, and Z. It just was the difference of, okay, learning where that damn button is and what menus that is in and what page that's in. And so I'll mention, I'll just say to anybody learning, it's great to jump on new consoles every night for the sake of learning everything, but it's also great to have something, even if it is an X32, a cheap console, a PreSonus, if you have to, whatever, a
Nope.
small
No.
digital console. So
No.
at least
No PreSonus. Don't waste your money. Just buy an
don't buy
X32.
one. But if like you have one at your junky, at the bar at your open mic night,
Yeah.
take it home if they'll let you, or go run open mic night and fart around with, break it, and learn what output routing is and input routing is.
Yeah.
Because then when you get to a different console, you'll know, okay, like I need to double up inputs, input 1 to 2 inputs, or,
Yeah.
the it's
Whatever
not
it is.
whatever, the fader's not working, so I need to jump it down, or whatever stupid scenario you might have in front of you. um, Having quality time with one piece of equipment will teach you what you need to know with other pieces of equipment, and I think
Totally.
that's also very important.
Totally.
um,
All right. So I feel like we've gone pretty long.
yeah,
Let's do some in closing. What's your desert island, Mike?
my desert island mic.
You only have
man.
one.
I
You can only have one,
only
but you're gonna put it on everything. What are you gonna
if
do?
if I'm gonna have one mic and I literally have to put it on every single thing, like
Well,
vocals, drums.
most things. Let's say pretty much everything.
Honestly, I'm really liking these M80s with the short barrels. Just because you can use them for a vocal. It is this identical mic. Put it on drums. I've seen people put it on horns, and people even, background singers just put them, as smaller mics. They just aesthetically look cool because they're small.
Side note: this would probably make a great hammer if you were stuck.
Yeah,
That's real heavy.
yeah, they have some weight to them. I do like the M80s, or I mean, yeah, just a 57 or 58 if I had to. I do like a Beta 58. I do prefer a Beta 58 over a
Really?
normal 58. I do.
I like regular ones. I feel like I have less trouble with them.
I am.
I mixed a band for like a year or so where their vocalist had a Beta 58, and I don't hate him or anything. He had a higher register voice in scream, and then that mic boosts that, and so every night it was like a big fight for me. So I think that's why I like kind of stay clear of them, because that was just such a bad experience.
Mhm.
But that also is a case of wrong mic for the wrong person. So
Right.
I can't.
Yeah, and
like,
it
blame the
happens.
mic.
Like, I hate when I put out a microphone that I particularly want to use for something, and then an artist walks in and they're like, no, I just want a 58, or I have a mic, or why would you put that there? And just like,
Oh,
well,
dude,
because
I did a
I'm doing the sound.
yeah, yeah, it's me. I think it was last Christmas. I did this big kind of like Christmas show. It was some band from like Seattle, and they flew in, and it was like in a big college auditorium, and like a lot of old people came. And they played a bunch of like rock versions of Christmas songs, and I had an M80 out because I saw on like the sheet that they sent. It was the first time I was gigging at this place too, and uh, it said like, oh, it's from their old engineer, and it was like, oh, a vocal mic we'd like is like, it's like or this or an M80, and I was like, oh, M80, I'll do that,
Great,
sick.
yeah,
And then the main person of the band was the front woman, and she walked in, and she was just like, do you guys have a KSM 9? And I was like, I don't know. And I looked at the production guy, and he's like, yeah. And she's like, I want that. And I was like, God damn it. Yeah, all right,
right,
fine. I'm like, fine, I'll take the M80
right.
back.
And that's because they are just so sold on a name or something, and
Yeah, somebody told them once that they sounded
that's the
good
one
on
you
it.
have to have,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. I had a guy coming through with, and it was like a folk band. It was like 5 or 6 people playing. It was like 3 or 4 acoustic guitars, a stand-up bass, and like a cello, like a real folky type, or fiddle or something. I can't even remember what everything was, but the dude had all Neumann, like big, large diaphragm Neumann stuff on the stage for
Oh,
live, and I was
that's
like,
cool.
it's super cool. You got 20 grand worth of fucking microphones on my stage right now. Plus, I'm just making a number up.
But still,
Because
no,
I'm not
I
even
don't want that.
exaggerating. I counted 13 Neumanns on the stage for a group of 6 acoustic instruments between vocals and just their strings,
That's a
and
nightmare to travel with. That sounds terrifying.
yeah, and they're huge, and you had Pelicans full of them. Which, but
And if
that's all they
if
brought:
it,
acoustic guitars and acoustic instruments and microphones, and that's
if
all they brought, which is fine. But
if
man, honestly, his fucking mix sucked, bro. Like it just, and I don't mean to talk shit.
no, but
Our house can be tough, but it just, I
it
felt, I was like,
happens.
man, I was like, why do you have, 20 plus thousand dollars worth of expensive, fancy microphones on the stage?
If you can't even use them,
If,
yeah.
like, yeah, right, you can't, like, you should have just, like, I get the studio thing. Like, if you're a studio cat and that's what you do, like, do that.
But it's yeah, but it's just like yo,
But your
a you have
the
a
application was just wrong,
you have a full price house in a normal city is on my stage right now, like amount of money,
Right, yeah,
and it's like, and it sounds bad out front. It's like that's
right.
insane.
Right. It didn't, definitely didn't sound. It just sounded thin and like
Yeah.
it sounded like you were listening to a one-legged record player, that where it was just like the one, like, left or right side, where it was just like super nasally and thin, and you could
Uh,
hear everything, but it was just so harsh and so
no,
harsh and bright, and I don't know what he was doing. Um,
dude,
I don't know.
I've had so many shows at home with like guys that come in with these crazy rigs or something. And like,
Yeah.
where I work also, like my normal gig here is not the easiest room either. So I try not to judge people too hard on it, but sometimes, dude, there is someone who I will not name um who is an incredible mixer now. Um and I don't know, they probably were then too. And they had all the stuff on stage, whatever, whatever. And then they were like compressing the mains 7 to 1, and then they were just like, "Hey, your PA is not really like I'm not getting any like level out of it." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because you're borderline limiting
Yeah.
the mains." And
You're almost brick walling the
and
main.
and he was just like, "No, that's not it." And I'm like, "It's literally like you're stopping
It's
yourself right now." And
yeah.
like, I was like, "Your mix should be like awesome right now." And then they just kept doing weird shit like that. But it's the same thing. They didn't have Neumanns, but they had like, you know, full gear, sold out show, huge band. And then
Yeah.
I was like, what's happening?
Right.
Why are you?
Or
What?
I've seen a lot of guys come through. Well, they'll have an X32, but they'll be using it Dante with like an Antelope or something through different pre's. Like I saw some guy came in with two of those. You know how the Midas XL8, the XL8 racks that you can get like the 8-channel
Oh,
Midas
the like
XL8 pre.
crazy expensive ones.
They're not. You can get them pretty cheap now in the like less than $1,000, I think, where
Oh,
it's just like
never mind.
like a rack unit of 8.
I know what you're talking about. I'm thinking of that like singular preamp they did that was like $9,000.
Yeah, no, not that thing. I'm saying it's like old. It's
Yeah,
older. It's
yeah.
literally a like
It's a
a
strip from the
single space
console.
rack
Yeah,
unit. It's a single space rack unit, and it literally has 8 mic pre's in it, and
yeah,
it's literally just the gain, high pass filter, and like phase reverse 90s
yeah.
phantom
It's
power, and so he was using the XL8 pre's, but he was using an outboard what you may call it, AD converter to run the audio through and using the X32 as literally just faders. And I'm like, and then through with the Neumann. So I'm like, what? You're working so hard through, but you still got an X32 and all this old vintage
it's like you have
shit on the stage. I'm like, why didn't you just use our Pro 2?
it's like
Why'd you bring XL8? And I get it, XL8 pre's can be great, but like you should have just left that at the studio.
yeah. You could just have a Pro 2 and have a similar pre.
Right, yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
I mean
like some
it's
guys
it's not the same, but it's close enough.
like it's just modern. Like
Yeah.
it's just come on, dude. Isn't 1985.
All right.
And that's not to knock the analog dudes because it is
No,
super
analog's
cool and
sick.
respect. Like there's some diehard analog dudes. Like I remember, I forget his name, but the guy at PlayStation Theater
Oh
up
yeah, yeah, yeah,
in
yeah. In
Times
New York,
Square.
in New York,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Times Square right there.
Also,
PlayStation Theater.
R.I.P. PlayStation
Yeah,
Theater.
rest in peace that place.
Yeah.
But that guy super awesome, and that was he's got a big Midas desk up there. Or had one the
Is it
3000.
was it a 3K?
I think it was, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
yeah.
And
I'm in a Facebook
and he
group,
kept it in tip
and
top shape, and
yeah,
he knew
he
it in
always
and out. And
posts
he
about
can
it.
pull a great freaking mix off it. Awesome dude. And I had my Pro one next to it, and you know,
Yeah, totally.
it just is there's some people that are just inbred that way,
No, totally. And like
and that's fine.
analog
But
can be sick. Touring with it,
if it lives there,
terrible. Yeah,
it can be
and
sick if it lives there. That's all
tour,
I'll say.
yeah, touring with analog stuff sounds like a something I never want to do at any level ever
Yeah.
because it just sounds.
Like I remember my first few gigs where like I mean, we're talking 18, 19 years old with my first sound company here in South Florida, where I would get to send out to do like the little wedding band or little jazz band event in a little ballroom type hotel thing for whatever. And, a little 10 channel Mackie mixer or something,
Mm,
just, or actually my first by myself where my boss handed me the keys to the van and trailer and was like, take the little C system rig and go make me some money. Uh, Hire one of your friends to help you move the cases. I was like, okay. Sends me to like a super expensive neighborhood here in town where people like have like live on the water, have yachts in the
mm,
backyard, yada yada yada. Clubhouse event, set up the whole PA. The promoter walks in for the event. I'm like, oh, so like what is the event? I know it's like a track show. I heard it's like just to lip sync or something. Like I knew it was a track type thing. And he's like, oh yeah, it's a drag show. And I was like, oh, nice. And again, I was like 18, 19 years old. Had never been to a drag show. Have no clue what to expect. And
didn't know
actually, it was
that.
a great time. It
Yeah,
was super fun to be
I was
frank. And like everybody
didn't
was
know that
super
they
nice.
didn't
But
know
I
that they
was just
get
like,
crazy.
oh, okay. And I'm backstage helping all the everybody, the men and women, or whatever
Yeah,
politically
no,
correct statement we'll use today. Sorry, don't roast me on that one.
roast them in the comments.
Yeah. Helping them get lobs in their dresses and stuff. And we all had a great time, and it was just stuff like
Those
that is just fun when it comes to sound.
those are get so wild.
They do
They're so much
actually.
fun.
They have them here at the Kelsey Theater here in West Palm, and
They're
like a couple times a
crazy.
month before COVID, and yeah, it's fucking damn good business, man.
Oh, dude, I used to do. Well, first off, I'll just say Desert Island for me. Once you said M80, I started thinking about it and being like, oh, that could be cool. I was just gonna say 57 because you can do everything you ever need. M80 is a way more interesting answer, so I'll say M80.
Yeah, I mean just
But yeah, I used to do a lot of stuff at casinos around here, like stagehanding or just audio stuff every now and again when they needed it. Because they all have big showrooms. And one of the things that we used to do that's kind of stopped coming here was it was a Vietnamese variety show, and they were crazy. So much
Mhm.
fun to watch, though. It was like absolute madness. Like I can't even describe it, but it's like the same thing as like it's not the same thing, but it's same idea as like the drag show, and just like terms of
Just being
like
so
just
not having a clue what to really. It's just like
yeah
something you've heard about or seen in a movie, and you're just like,
yeah
okay, hold your breath. This is gonna be what it is today,
yeah
and it ends up being super cool. Like same thing kind of happened, like just left field event years ago. I forget the particular holiday what it was, but it was some kind of Indian holiday,
mm-hmm.
like Indian, not
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, not native.
Native American
Yeah.
Indian. Um, but it was some kind of religious holiday where it was spread out over 2 or 3 days, and it was like from sundown to like midnight or something, where they would play music and dance and like eat and
Yeah,
celebrate
party.
party.
Yeah,
It was a
yeah,
crazy big party. All the women wore these crazy beautiful colorful dresses and gowns and stuff, and everybody dressed nice. Everybody had to take your shoes. It was the only gig I'd ever loaded in and out 100, did everything in socks, because it was like
yeah. Because you can't wear shoes. Yeah.
and it was actually in a gymnasium of a high school, but because of the holiday, it was still like no shoes allowed in the gym for the
Mm-hmm.
whatever respect of the thing. And I was like, okay, cool, just try not to drop anything on my toes, because I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Pray
say a
you don't
curse
lose
word
your
in
toes.
your holy space,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
and and yeah, it was just such a crazy time and they fed us too, and got to meet people from that side of the world that I didn't spend a whole lot of time with. And
Yes.
yeah, it was just super just not what you expected, and you're just like,
Yeah.
I got paid to do that today. That was different, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so I
We'll have to,
it's
we'll have to do an episode of all the weird shit we've had to
yeah,
work
just
because
like the oblong stuff.
I've done some weird stuff, like
Yeah,
stuff that I'm like I don't know why I'm here right now,
yeah.
but I guess I'll
Like when
do
they're
it.
like, go make the didgeridoo, you're like, oh shit,
Yeah,
okay.
go make the didgeridoo or where can I plug in my theremin?
Yeah, it's like, oh,
You're like,
okay,
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll go
yeah,
ask someone. Uh, Sick.
cool,
I feel
good
like
chat.
we just talked about a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Again, questions, comments, concerns for whatever stuff you want to hear us talk about. Email and this is in the description. Hit us with your questions in the comments, whatever. Um, you got anything you want to shout out?
I mean, it pretty much summed it up. I would just say, yeah, anybody have any questions or anything you want to hear us talk about? Well, I know we talked about doing like a tour story, is just kind of the we could talk about the good and bad times,
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
would be a fun one to do maybe next, or
yeah.
so.
Just like in the intro again, R.I.P. Riley, Power Trip. Uh, I'm trying to think of anything new and recent for me to shout out.
What
I
have you
don't.
been up to the last 2 weeks? Anything in particular? Just same old shit.
I've been mixing some studio stuff for a band from here called Broloaf. They're a really crazy like punk band, really
Mm-hmm.
fun. If that comes out, I'll shout it out on here. Um, Doing that, did some test streaming stuff. I might have that, or might be starting that out here coming up. Just other little events and stuff like that that we're trying to plan for the rest of the year
Mm-hmm.
at the Nile here because we can't have shows for another year, like
Yeah, it's
probably.
just it's
So
doing something. Yeah, I unfortunately haven't literally done a single thing audio wise. I kind of help out in this little guitar shop here at home, taking out the trash and restrings and
hmm.
answering the phone and junk. Um, and then I actually just picked up. I don't know if I mentioned it in the last one. I've been doing these kayak tours, so getting
Oh,
paid to float around on my paddleboard, dude.
that's
It's
sick.
all yeah, it's great. And it's different because I'm 2 miles from the ocean, and so it's
Yeah.
this company that me Chris from Wage War also works there. He got me the gig, so we're tour guides, so we're touring the world and
Touring
tour
the oceans.
touring the ocean. So it's pretty fun. So that's kind of all I've been up to here at home. Um, yeah, man, rock and
Sick.
roll.
Well, I guess we'll leave it at that. Yeah, hit us. LaCroix hit us up for a sponsorship.
Yeah, LaCroix and the North Face,
In the North
please.
Face.
I need some more teas. So,
Sick. All right. That's where we're
all
gonna end
right,
it here.
dude. I'll catch you up later.
Yeah, we'll see everybody later.